March 2020. Thanks for tuning in to another episode of That's What G Said. I guess by the time most of you listen to this, it's actually going to be March 10th, Tuesday, but recorded and put most of this together late into March 9th. The schedule will, I guess, change a little bit for the next few weeks. We'll most likely have shows that come out Monday into Monday evening, kind of recap the sports over the weekend, and we'll cover the Sam Houston races for Tuesday and for Wednesday, because the next few weeks, Sam Houston actually has another day of racing on Tuesday during the day. So we'll cover the Sam Houston Tuesday and Wednesday. We'll also do some interviews. So on this particular episode, we'll talk a little basketball, some college basketball, and then we have a really good interview with Jon Stettin from Past the Wire, the Pick Six King, and with Andrew Champagne. The three of us all talk together about all of the news that came out earlier today in the world of horse racing, with all sorts of trainers, veterinarians, all sorts of different people throughout the industry who have been charged, arrested, indictments all over. We basically go through everything. We spend about 50 minutes kind of talking, getting our thoughts all out. So you're going to really want to tune into this interview. And then we speak with Andy Villanueva about the Sam Houston Tuesday and the Sam Houston Wednesday races. So a couple of nice conversations on this episode. Before we get into the horse racing side of things, just a couple things to mention. If you're a fan of Curb Your Enthusiasm, make sure, if you have not watched the most recent episode, the season 10, episode 8, Elizabeth, Margaret, and Larry, please check that one out. I was just dying laughing. John Hamm is in the episode, and he is just hilarious. He absolutely makes it. Just the gist of what it is. He is going to be in a movie that's like loosely based on a character that's like Larry David, so he wants to follow Larry David around for the day, and so he starts following Larry around for a while, and he starts mimicking him, and he picks up a lot of his idiosyncrasies, and it's great. It's one of the better ones of this season, so season 10. So check it out if you're a fan of Curb Your Enthusiasm. Let's do some quick hits in the world of sports, but we're going to do those in just a moment after we hear a quick word from one of our sponsors. Horse racing fans and bettors of all kinds, we are very excited to be covering the races from Sam Houston Race Park here on That's What G Said on each and every episode. They're broadcasting in HD, they have bigger purses, turf racing over there, but for me, the key is that 12% low takeout on their multi-leg wagers, doubles, pick threes, pick fours, pick fives. They are building a great program over there. It truly is major league racing. We have to give a big applause to the TTA, the Texas Thoroughbred Association. They've added new incentives and bonus programs for buying and selling horses, so it's better for the customers and it's better for the horsemen in Texas. Their social media presence has been bumped up. You can follow them at SHRP Racing on Twitter, and you're going to find morning training videos, the Monday Minute, jockey interviews, or if you're not on Twitter, you can find all the information at shrp.com. They're just working so hard to treat their horsemen and women and the bettors right, so let's give them a little bit of our focus. A couple big days coming up. February the 22nd is Texas Preview Day, and the big day, March the 21st, that is Texas Champions Day. We'll be covering all of that action here on That's What G Said, with all sorts of different interviews focusing in on Sam Houston. Make sure when you go to play the races, give Sam Houston a look with that ultra low 12% takeout in the multi-leg wagers. A huge weekend for the Los Angeles Lakers. You know, I'm a big Laker fan, so obviously I'm gonna always be thinking a couple wins are big. But this was big. The Lakers beat the two teams in the league that they haven't been able to beat so far. Now, they haven't played a couple other teams twice that they've lost to, but these were the teams that everybody said, could they beat? Could they beat Milwaukee? Could they beat the Clippers? The Clippers have beat them a couple times. I think we could probably say that the opening night game, I think you can kind of throw that out. That was literally the first game of the year, and both the Lakers and Clippers look a lot different than they do now. On the Christmas Day game, the Lakers seemingly outplayed the Clippers most of that game, and then the Clippers were better down the stretch because Kawhi isn't just an unbelievable closer, and he was excellent that game. And then in this game, you had Kawhi, he was okay. Paul George was very, very good. The rest of the Clippers weren't really good. Zubats was okay early on. It was two teams that didn't really shoot the ball very well. Neither team shot the ball well from three. But LeBron, again, showed that what he's doing at age 35 is just absolutely incredible. With these two wins, the win against the Bucks on Friday and the win against the Clippers on Sunday, he has vaulted himself right back into the MVP conversation. And now that's the question we have to pose. Who's the MVP this year? Because right now, Giannis has missed the last two games. He has an injury, and he's probably going to miss, maybe a couple more. The Bucks have one less loss than the Lakers right now after losing 3 in a row. So if the reason that Giannis was the MVP was because he was on a good team and they were just dominating and they had this unbelievable win record, well, that's not really the case anymore. So here are some of the positives for LeBron. I think if you look at most of the numbers, and I got to be honest, I think it is Giannis. But Giannis has been the better player. His numbers and what he's done in less time on the court all throughout the year has been incredible. And the Bucks beat the Lakers the first time they played. So it's really hard to just look at these last week or two and what LeBron has been doing and weigh that more heavily. But that is kind of what happens in sports, right? The bigger games get weighed a little bit more heavily. And these games were a little bit bigger because they were later in the season. They meant a little bit more. The Lakers are 20-0 this year when LeBron scores 30-plus points. The Lakers are 42-0 when leading going into the fourth quarter. LeBron is shooting since the All-Star game, LeBron is shooting 77% on his free throws, which doesn't sound like a lot, but he was shooting like under 70% most of the year. And so he's improved in the last couple weeks. He was averaging 5 free throws a game before the All-Star break, and now he's averaging 8. So not only is he shooting better, he's shooting more from the free throw line. He's shooting better. If you've noticed, he's been taking a long time in between his free throws, really trying to slow things down. I know LeBron's a polarizing guy. I know a lot of people, you've rooted against him your whole life, so there's plenty of reasons to knock, to hate. What he's doing this late in his career has never been done. Only Karl Malone, it kind of comparable what he was, when he was producing this late into his career. And it's unbelievable. LeBron is leading the best team in the West. The Lakers have a huge margin now in the West. Nobody's going to catch them. And let's be honest, I had a lot of fights with people before this season. Nobody, not one person, thought the Lakers were going to be the number 1 seed in the West. None. Everybody, LeBron can't carry this team. Anthony Davis is injury prone. LeBron's going to get hurt. They have no depth. They have nobody else around them. No one's going to step up. Don't pretend like you were out there acting like the Lakers were going to be the best team in the West. Don't act like you were pretending like they were going to have the best record in the West. Because when I was making bets with a lot of people on who was going to have better records and where the Lakers were going to finish, people were telling me they weren't going to win 50 games. They were going to be just over 500. They were going to be vying for a bottom of the West playoff spot. So what LeBron's doing right now with his on and off numbers, when he goes off the court, the Lakers are just okay, and in some cases not good. Now they've improved a little bit because I think the addition of Markieff Morris, and it seems like they're able to kind of fill their spots a little bit better. It bumps Kuzma down to the 3. It gives them a little bit more when he's out of the game. I think it's legitimate that LeBron's in the conversation for MVP now. LeBron is one of those players where, like, LeBron could be the MVP every year, right? Like, Kobe was like this for a while. Shaq was like that for a while. Jordan was like that for a while. Like, it's hard to say that they're not the best player in the league every year. And when we see what LeBron's been doing for this team, for this Lakers team as of late, this weekend in particular, he went up against Giannis. He was the better player. He went up against Kawhi. LeBron was the better player. His last MVP was back in 2013. And so, you look at baseball, like Mike Trout wins every year. Why is it different in basketball? It's a narrative thing, right? It becomes a narrative. So, who's carrying or who's overachieving or who's doing a little bit of something that we haven't seen, or people kind of get bored with voting for the same person over and over. And that actually might work in LeBron's favor this year because he hasn't won in the last couple years, because we've seen Giannis and Harden and Curry and Westbrook, Durant. It's been a while for LeBron. And this, leading the Lakers back to prominence, taking a team that people thought would be good, but people assumed that the Lakers would be a team that was going to be really tough to play in the playoffs, and they wouldn't really take the regular season seriously. And that's just been the complete opposite. I love Pat Beverly. They asked him about the game, and he said, guarding LeBron is no challenge. Pat Beverly, you're a punk. You know, I kind of wanted Pat Beverly on the Lakers in the offseason. I thought he was one of those guys. And I watch him, and I know he sets a tone for your team, and he plays good defense. He gets away with murder. The guy, everyone's given 6 fouls. He gets about 15. They were talking about it on the broadcast, too. Why is he not getting teed up when he's screaming at the referees, and Danny Green and Avery Bradley are getting texts for just the way they respond? That's absolute crap. He's going to get his. Pat Bev, he tried to come up and puff his chest out to LeBron. You act tough to the wrong person one of these times, and you're going to get yours. So I prefer being tough like that is fine, but you have to let your game speak for you sometimes. And the issue is, he's not really out there producing, scoring points, getting assists, doing a whole lot. He's just kind of running around, acting crazy a lot. That's what Westbrook says, right? I don't like Pat Bev's stuff. I like how he hustles. I like how he plays hard, but I don't like when he tries to do cheap stuff. Paul George is awesome. If Paul George is that good, the Clippers, that's the next level that they need. And that was basically the best performance we've seen from Paul George until the fourth quarter. He was kind of quiet in the fourth quarter, but he was excellent through 3 quarters. And Kawhi was okay. Marcus Morris was not good. He kind of shot them out of the game. So now with the Giannis injury, we'll see if the Lakers can make up the ground to have that best overall record in the NBA. Sorry if you heard a little Milo in the background. He had his 4-month appointment today. He's going to be 4 months on the 12th, which is crazy. So he had a doctor's appointment in the shots. So he actually did really, really well. He hasn't been too upset most of the day, but I think he was starting to get a little upset as the night settled in. So he was trying to say hello in the background. Just wanted to check in and make sure he was all good. So let me make sure to give the Clippers credit, right? The Lakers won a game. I think they won it impressively because I don't think the Lakers played very well. The Clippers didn't play well either. It wasn't like the Clippers played great and the Lakers played, great and beat them. I don't think either team played their best, but that to me is what made me confident as a Laker fan, because I think they also have another level or two to go up, and so do the Clippers. I just feel like these two teams are so head and shoulders above everybody else in the West. And then in the East, it's tough. What is Boston going to be like with their young core with Tatum? What about Toronto, who's been really good in the regular season? Are they going to be that good if they don't really have a go-to guy down the stretch? Will it matter? And then with Milwaukee, what we've seen with how Miami was able to defend them and play them tough, and what the Lakers were able to do. If you force Giannis to have to make some threes and you force everyone else to beat you, can they do that? Can the 76ers, get together quick enough to, win a couple series and kind of live up to the potential that everybody thought they had coming into this year? Then you look at the Rockets, the Houston team that have been trying this new look, no big men style of play, and they've lost 4 games in a row now. They got crushed by the Clippers, and then they got beat by a couple bad teams, and they are down in the 6th seed right now. So right now in the West, if the playoffs started today, it would be Lakers, Grizzlies, Clippers, Mavericks. That's actually an interesting series. The Clippers are really good, but if Luka gets hot, he could carry you and win a couple games. The 3 seed is the Denver Nuggets. They'd be playing the Houston Rockets, and the 4-5 would be the Jazz and the Thunder. The Thunder, they just keep playing well. They've won 3 in a row now, 8-2 in their last 10. And then in the East, the Bucks, the 1 seed would be playing the Magic. The 2-seeded Toronto Raptors would be playing the Brooklyn Nets. The 3-seeded Celtics would be playing the 76ers. I don't like that matchup for Boston at all. And then Miami, the 4 seed, would be playing the 5 seed, the Pacers there. So we'll check in a little more in a few weeks. when basketball is kind of winding down and right before the playoffs and really start to dig in, and then we'll do some post-game playoff games, some nights when there are double playoff games or 2 or 3 games, we'll do some post shows afterwards and recap some of the games, find some guests on, because for the next few weeks, I'm going to be talking a little bit about March Madness, a little NCAA, before we get to some of the other quick hits. Let's hear from one of our sponsors. Just wanted to remind you about one of the sponsors of That's What G Said podcast, Sarah Candle Company. Visit sarahcandles.com, CERA candles.com. Use the promo code GINO for 10% off of your entire purchase. These are all natural soy wax candles. They burn longer. They are better for you than the candles out there that have that traditional paraffin wax. I know the people from this company personally. I've grown up with them my whole life. They love candles, and the goal was to have an affordable candle that everyone can enjoy. Use that promo code GINO. My favorite is Fresh Roses. The Fresh Roses scent is awesome. If you're a horse racing fan, they got Del Mar in there. You ever want to know what Del Mar smells like, but you couldn't make it out there? Order your candle right now from Sarah Candle Company. The website, CERA candles.com. sarahcandles.com. Promo code GINO for 10% off your purchase. Just some little stories to talk about it throughout the world and of sports. Tua Tagovailoa, the former Alabama quarterback, he has been medically cleared for all football activity. That's cool. Tua coming out in the draft, so medically cleared. We'll see where Tua lands and what his future will be like. The NFL Nation has put together a little article that talks about some of the most likely destinations for Tom Brady. And if you had to guess, where would you think some of them are? So this article talks about 4 different possibilities. New England, obviously, the Chargers, the Tampa Bay Bucks, and the Titans. They don't think that the Bears are ready to give up on Trubisky yet. Don't think that Denver is the right spot. Not sure if Indy or the Raiders are the right spot. But Dolphins, 49ers, they say no. But it seems like they have kind of narrowed it down to 4. What do you think? Where do you think Brady ends up? I get the feeling he's gone. I really do. I think he's going to go somewhere else. I would not be shocked to see him out here in L.A. playing for the Chargers. NCAA basketball weekend, huge weekend, and the rankings changed a little bit. Kansas still up top. They are number 1. Florida State has moved up quite a bit. So some of the teams kind of moving up the ranks. Florida State, they're up to number 4. They won the ACC regular season title. Creighton's up to number 7. Michigan State's up to number 9. They tied for a share in the Big Ten regular season with Wisconsin. Wisconsin, they're up to number 18. Virginia's up to number 17. And Villanova has moved all the way up to 11. Seton Hall lost a couple games last week, so they're down to 16. Louisville dropped down. Louisville has also dropped down a little bit, and they're number 15 in the current rankings. We had a big USC-UCLA game out here this weekend. USC got the better of UCLA late on a game-winning shot from Jonah Matthews. The Pac-12 bracket will give both USC and UCLA a bye in the first round. So they both finished inside the top 4, which means they get the single bye. And it looks like UCLA is going to be playing possibly Stanford. And if so, that becomes sort of a play-in game between UCLA and Stanford, both teams who are basically on the bubble right now. I think it looks like USC has kind of given themselves a really good opportunity to get in with their win. You have to think that unless USC were to get absolutely crushed or beat by 30, by Washington or something, they look like they're in. In fact, in a lot of places, they've kind of moved all the way up to the 9 line. They're like a 9 seed, which, I'd rather be a 10 or an 11 seed, because then you get a chance to go down there and play the 2s and the 3s. You don't have to necessarily play the 1s if you upset someone. So, and what we've been seeing is the entire bubble is basically the Pac-12, right? Like the the bubble is Stanford, UCLA, Arizona State. They're all right there. So we'll have Caleb Keller and Keeneland Dan coming on later on in the week because it's going to be a lot of college basketball focus right now on That's What G Said. So for Joe Lunardi, his last 4 byes were Marquette, Arizona State, Texas Tech, and UCLA. The last 4 in, which means they're in that play-in game, Stanford, Indiana, Texas, and North Carolina State. So you can see there was 3 Pac-12 teams in the last 8 teams that are in the tournament. First 4 out, Richmond, Xavier, Wichita State, Memphis. Next 4 out, Mississippi State, Tulsa, Purdue, UNI. So brackets over the next few weeks. It is that time of the year. The coronavirus stuff is getting a little bit scary, too. All sports in Italy have been halted because of the coronavirus outbreak. Games in Serie A and in prep events for the Tokyo Olympics. So there's been a big widespread coronavirus outbreak now in Italy. And lots of different things all over are getting postponed. We're also finding out that the NBA, the NHL, and MLB are going to be limiting locker room access from the media. They're going to be closing locker rooms because they want to eliminate non-essential personnel. So teams and people starting to respond to the coronavirus stuff. Very scary stuff. And just hope that, just wash your hands. Try to stay healthy the best you can. Let's get into the first interview. This one is with Andrew and with Jon Stettin. This will be our Past the Wire segment, as John and I will talk about. We're going to start doing these weekly segments with Past the Wire. That's what G said, Past the Wire edition, where it'll be John on. We'll do interviews. We'll have kind of, a conversation where we handicap the races and just kind of talk a little bit about what Past the Wire has been covering for the week. So it'll be kind of something that we can look forward to each and every week. We'll get you more details and more plans about that. But honestly, as this information about the horse racing scandal and the trainers getting arrested and all this stuff came out, I just talked to John, we talked to Andrew, and it was like, hey, let's just have a forum a little later on tonight and get some of our thoughts out and kind of talk this all out. And so a lot of people can hear what we're thinking, and some of you out there that probably haven't heard or don't even know really specifically what has been going on. So we spend about 50 minutes or so. John kind of lays it out. We go back and forth. We all kind of respond to different things that each other said. I really like this conversation. Kick back and enjoy this talk on some of the things, the real ugly side of horse racing that we found out today. Unfortunately, we're not surprised by it. But we give all of our thoughts and maybe what we can do from here moving forward. Enjoy this interview. Scandal rocked the horse racing world on Monday, March the 9th. It's amazing. We're recording this right now, and it is a little after 10 Eastern time. And I'm going to bring in Jon Stettin first. And John, we're going to more formally have some kind of a weekly segment with Past the Wire, and That's What G Said, where we, do some interviews and we talk horse racing and we have a weekly segment, and we're going to set it up a little bit better in the next week or so. But when this all came out, we just kind of discussed with each other, like, this would be a good time to at least get some thoughts out there because this is kind of crazy. So I'm talking scandal. Why don't you do a little better job of kind of setting the tone? And I want to let everybody know that Andrew Champagne is on the line with us also. So the three just kind of go back and forth and talk about everything that happened today. So, John, hello. Thanks for joining me. And why don't you kind of set the tone a little bit for everyone who might not have known the story?
Sure. I can't say I'd be happy to, but I'm more than willing to, because I don't know that today is really a happy day. Although I am cautiously optimistic that possibly some good can come out of it down the road. Yeah. I'm not 100% sold on that, but as you mentioned, there were indictments handed down today by the FBI and the U.S. Attorney's Office against 2 well-known trainers, a couple of lesser-known trainers, a couple of veterinarians, and some, other people involved. Namely, the big names are Jorge Navarro and Jason Service. I mean, both very well-known, very high profile, and also very high percentage trainers. I can't say that this, for anybody who's been, watching thoroughbred racing for a while, that this should really have come as a surprise. What surprised me was that it's taken this long for something like this to occur. And I go back a long way with racing. I remember the race fixing scandals with a guy named Tony Chiola and Con Erico. And, there was a scandal, long ago at NYRA involving the, top riders in the country at the time, Angel Cordero, George Velasquez, and Jacinto Vasquez, Eddie Maple. I went through all of those things. And this, I would say, certainly rivals that. It was different. Today, everything comes down to performance-enhancing drugs. I've done a lot of research today on what these guys were using, what they do, and a couple of things just jump out at me. One is, the first thing that really jumps out is the just blatant cruelty and neglect towards the animals. And when you get into a little bit more of exactly what they were doing and the effects that it has, you'll understand what I mean by that. And the other is really the greed. If we assume for the sake of this conversation, these allegations are 90% true, then the greed in that these guys were doing it so often with so many horses they ran is just mind-boggling to me. And, what really, really gets me is, people say, oh, it's an indictment against these guys. I look at it a little differently. I look at it as an indictment against racing and how we run our sport. And the reason for that, Gino and Andrew and everybody out there listening, is, to me, when you have a race like the Kentucky Derby, and when you go out of the country and have races like on Dubai Carnival Night, anchored by the Dubai World Cup, and things like this are happening on those jurisdictions where they're under the most strict protocol and guidelines and scrutiny in the world, then what does it say about the everyday races and about how we're running our sport and who we have, who we're allowing to compete in it? So, I mean, it's disheartening from that aspect for me. But yeah. I think that it's a positive step, and I think that a lot more is going to come of it.
So, Andrew, let's get some of your kind of initial big picture thoughts. Like, you gave me a call early this morning when you saw this, and then we talked about it for a few seconds, and then I said, hey, let's just save this for later, and we can chat more about it on the podcast and record. So what are some of the big picture kind of first things that came into your head when you read all this morning?
Well, my first reaction was pretty similar to John's in that I wasn't shocked. And I don't think anybody that pays close attention to racing or has over the past couple of years was shocked to hear who was involved and that there was some improper behavior allegedly going on. We have to use the word allegedly because nobody's been convicted of anything. Having said that, if you haven't taken the time to read the 45-page indictment, I would strongly urge you to do so. If even 10 to 15% of this is true, it's bad, and it's worse than a lot of people could have ever thought possible. If this indictment is 100% accurate, Jorge Navarro was running a drug smuggling scheme akin to what Lance Armstrong was doing in cycling. It was a system wherein everybody had a role. They were actively sneaking stuff, in some cases past international borders. It's just confounding to me how this went on for so long before anybody got caught, if in fact this is what happened according to the FBI's 4-year-long investigation. Now, the other thing that I would like to point out is, thank goodness the Churchill Downs stewards took down maximum security.
Yeah.
Could you imagine the headlines, Kentucky Derby winner running on illegal substances? They're bad enough as it is. My goodness, had that horse not been taken down, what kind of a crisis are we looking at?
And John, what I think is kind of funny about what Andrew was pointing at is how, and we don't know behind closed doors. So you both were, I'm glad you both mentioned like alleged, all this stuff. When we see it written down in the FBI reports, I mean, I'm just assuming it's mostly true. There's a lot of stuff that unfortunately, these two trainers have said themselves when they were under wiretaps. Like, we're not even alleging some things. These are things that they admitted from their own mouth. What I thought, one of the first things that I was thinking of was, wow. Now, so the owners, Mr. and Mrs. West, are going on with this attempt to fight the disqualification for so long. In the meanwhile, Mr. Service, he knows that what he's been doing is not on the up and up. A relationship was that like, John? And just like thinking about that, could you imagine if they would have said, okay, you won your appeal. You're not going to be DQ'd. We're going to put you back up. And then we just find a few months later, Maximum Security, this horse who just won this awesome race in Saudi Arabia, one of the biggest races we've seen, he might have not been a clean horse all along.
100% true. It just makes a mess of everything, and it just shows, really, the just unmitigated gall, for lack of a better expression, of both Service and Navarro, and everybody else involved, really. But yeah, no, it's fortunate the horse was disqualified, although he was disqualified for something that has nothing to do with the allegation. Which is just a little ironic, but I guess some kind of weird justice. But as both of you guys said, it's really a mess. And I find the owner involvement interesting. And I don't mind saying this publicly. The Wests have been very vocal about Maximum Security and the Kentucky Derby. They had an opinion in the race. They filed a lawsuit that I thought they had no chance of winning. I saw the race differently and think the DQ was the right call at the time. I mean, that's really subjective, but that was just my opinion. They saw it a different way and were very vocal about that. They've been vocal a lot about horses. I don't hear anything from them now except that we want to hear what Jason Service has to say. And my understanding is Jason Service is actually still in custody.
Yeah.
And that's typical of a federal case. In a federal case, you don't get bail until you see a magistrate, and that doesn't happen right away. It could take 24, 36 hours or something like that. It certainly, usually takes overnight. So they're quiet, and then you have guys like Michael Dubb, who's on the board of NYRA, making a public statement or a statement to Bill Finley, where Bill Finley quoted him as saying he's completely shocked and has to absorb all of this. I've got a hard time getting my arms around that. How can this guy be training you and this happened and you make this statement as an owner and an NYRA board, you're completely shocked. I mean, if maybe, I don't mean to be rude, but maybe if you're dead from the neck up, you can claim that. But if you're not, I don't know how you can say you're completely shocked. I could see him coming out and saying, hey, I don't believe it. There's two sides to a story. There's more to it, something. But I don't see how anybody can be completely shocked. And the owners who were caught in a transcript of a conversation that's detailed in the indictment, I mean, they were, in my opinion, and I think it's hard to argue against this, they were encouraging and condoning what Navarro was doing with one of their horses, and actually asking about it. And then after doing so, saying, oh, let's not talk about this on the phone. Well, you already did talk about it on the phone. So, I mean, it's greed, it's insanity, it's gall, it's just, everything bad rolled into one. And then you've got, a poor 10-year-old gelding that ran his eyeballs out. I mean, you can never question the toughness of a horse like XY Jet, where this guy Navarro says on a transcript, he stood in front of the horse's stall in Dubai and injected him 50 times with a substance that he knows can kill him.
It makes you sick. It does make you sick. And I know you're someone I see, if you follow you online, you're someone who picks up rescue dogs. You love animals. We're all in this, we're all in this. We love the sport. We love the gambling aspect of it, but we're in it. We love animals. Andrew, I know you're the same way also. This is just something that it's so sad. And it's we're picking out like one thing at a time to talk about. This is so layered, and we're discussing this less than what this story's been out for about 15 hours, maybe, and things are just continuing to trickle out more and more and more and more. What I find, demoralizing too, Andrew, is again, who right now, no matter what ends up happening, suspensions, lifetime bans, Eclipse Awards getting taken away, any even purses that get redistributed, if anything like that ever were to happen. But who's the one group of people that are always going to get screwed? The bettors.
100%. Unquestionably. And before we go further, John, I just want to say thank you for bringing up the situation with Nanush. That disgusted me. The fact that an owner was deliberately going on a call, making sure that a thoroughbred racehorse was getting a drug or maybe a king that the owner had to know could kill the horse. My goodness, how dense can you possibly be to be not just allowing that behavior, but encouraging it, which is 100 times worse. Now, back to Gino's point, the stuff about bettors getting hosed, absolutely. I mean, we have been in a situation as handicappers where, again, given the situation with these trainers, with a couple of others, depending on what circuits you follow, that there's probably something going on. Horses don't improve that much first off the claim simply by going to a different barn and a different feed program. We're not stupid. We know what's going on. It's a matter of us getting as fair of a shake as humanly possible. And this reinforced that over the past several years on a number of high-level circuits, that simply was not happening.
I'm glad you said that, Andrew, because I'll share something with you guys. I think I might have mentioned this to you before, Gino, but I was a professional player for a long time. And by professional, I mean someone who made their living by betting on horses with nothing else to fall back on. I mean, if I didn't win, I couldn't pay my bills. And I was successful at that for many, many, many years, which is something that there are not a lot of people that can say, okay? And I lived well. And, a couple of years ago, I really scaled back. I used to bet a good amount of money every year, significant amount of money, much more than the average guy. And I scaled back when the game started changing, and I felt that you had to figure, cheating and nefarious actions much too much in everyday handicapping to have what I thought was an edge for myself. So I thought I was a smart guy. And I said, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to beat them at their own game. I'm going to scale back my handle, and now I'm going to bet 25% of what I used to. And of that 25%, I'm going to bet 90% of it on Kentucky Derby Day, on Breeders' Cup Day, on Belmont Stakes Day, on Traverse
Day. Where they can't cheat, right? There's no way they're cheating on those days.
Right. The playing field is level. They're not cheating, and I got a good shot. Shows what I know.
Yeah.
So to me, when I read in that indictment that, maximum security was likely running on performance-enhancing drugs when he crossed the wire first in the Derby, and I didn't bet on him in the Derby. I bet on Code of Honor, who I still feel could have won had it not been a sloppy track, but that's a conversation for another day. But
Shug didn't like maximum security. He's made some comments all along. He said, they seem to have excuses. They seem to duck certain races, and the trainers, a lot of them out there, it's weird because they're in a tough spot because, like, someone who's clean and who does it right and who does it the right way, what do? Because if you stand and point the finger at someone that you know in your heart 99% is cheating, but you don't really have the 100% proof, and if you just stand and point at someone, you kind of come off bitter. So I kind of like some of these clean trainers. It's like, it's very comparable to the steroids in baseball to me. It's like you have some of these players who they don't want to say anything because they don't want to come off looking like the bad guy, even though they didn't do anything.
Right. No. 100%.
Well, Gino, if I may interject really quick, and I don't mean to cut you off, John, I just got to say, it's really good that we're in an industry where everyone is really, really good at taking criticism, isn't it? I mean, horse racing is just phenomenal at taking criticism and taking it for what it is and improving the game rather than killing the messenger. But on a serious note, no, you're absolutely right. And we're in a situation where I got to tell you, if pressed, there's a very small amount of trainers that we can say with confidence are completely and totally clean and trustworthy. I mean, you look at guys like Mott, you look at guys like Motion.
Yeah.
Those are the guys that are handling themselves with class and with dignity. And Motion came off looking really good on Twitter this afternoon with a lot of statements that he made. I found myself nodding in agreement with a lot of them. But it's a situation where it's a tricky landscape for a lot of trainers, many of whom are just trying to make ends meet because all of the super trainers are taking their stock.
And along those lines, Andrew, I agree wholeheartedly with what you just said. And, one of the things I was thinking about when all of this hit is how many guys are out there, okay, that fall into that category you just kind of alluded to, that are basically honest, hardworking guys, but feel pressured to push the envelope a little bit just because it's the only way they can survive and compete, and they really don't have anywhere else to go. Not to condone taking that route, but I could see the pressure that some of those guys must be under to try and just stay alive and compete with these guys that are really ruining what was, what's a magnificent spectacle of a sport when done properly. It's just really, really irking to me that we're dealing with this and that, this is what's been going on. Our worst fears in the worst ways, probably worse than we thought, many of us.
And what's unfortunate about this, and not that there's ever a good time for a scandal or anything like this, but with everything that has happened in the last, 12 to 16 months or so, from Santa Anita, with all the horse deaths and just the public perception of horse racing right now, I mean, I don't know how many more big scandals we can afford right now. I mean, we're starting to get to a point where people in the outside, the public, they're going to look around and go, okay, there's horses that keep passing. These obviously trainers are literally shooting drugs and killing horses. They're just silly fines that they get slapped on the wrist with $100, $150, $500 sometimes. Get out of here. I mean, we don't have very much of a margin for error anymore, do we, guys?
Gino, we talked about this a lot in a prior conversation that we had, but my goodness, a couple of weeks makes a big, big difference. And one of the things that's really been borne out over that time period is it really seems like horse racing is quickly being revealed as something where the people involved in it are making Faustian bargains literally every day. And it's something different, what seems like every single week. You look at horses breaking down. You look at the issues that Sheikh Mohammed is undergoing right now with the women in his life and how that reflects on horse racing, since his money has impacted literally every single aspect of the sport. You look at issues like this. You look at the fact that horses just don't run as often as they used to. You look at situations like the one with Patrick Biancone, who some people say should have been banned for life when he got caught with snake venom. Now he's got two horses that are on the Kentucky Derby Trail and will likely take betting action on the first Saturday in May. Horse racing, it seems, can't buy good publicity right now. And as somebody that's been a fan of this game for decades, it's beyond frustrating and unfortunately not at all surprising.
John, so one question for you, and Andrew, I'm sure you're going to want to give an opinion on this one after too. If you're Mr. Dutrow right now, what the hell are you thinking?
Oh, I spoke to Rick a couple of days ago. I've been involved in trying to lobby for him to get back. And you guys know, or at least I would imagine can tell how I feel about people who cheat. I do not believe that he was a cheater. I think he was mislabeled. And I think he was made a scapegoat. And I know how he feels. He's devastated. He's devastated and, really is at a point where he can't even understand anymore how what happened to him can stand when this is what's truly going on and has been going on all the time while he's been sitting on the sideline. The guy, he's devastated. He's completely devastated by this. Not happy about it. Cares about horses. These are things that I believe he would never do. was never caught doing, except for the one incident where those syringes were found. And now you've got a state steward that was a steward for 30 years that wrote every ruling at NYRA during the time he was there. And like I said, he was there 30 years. He wrote every ruling, even the rulings under other stewards' names. He actually wrote them because he was the guy that, was commissioned to do that, or was kind of his role, saying that, the needles were planted and they knew they were planted, and they've openly discussed the fact that they were planted. Another major issue for the game, in my opinion, I think if nothing else, racing in the past couple of years has shown as an industry, we are not capable of policing ourselves. We've had enough chances. We can't do it. We need either an outside regulatory body and a commissioner and a central governing system, or we need the Horse Racing Integrity Act, which will probably never pass, and if it does, it's years away. But we need something other than saying, okay, well, now we're going to rally and get together, and we're going to clean up the game, or we're going to finally do some reform, or we're going to make it better. I think that ship has sailed, in all honesty.
We've been saying it for a long time, and there's been, like, you named a few different incidents too, John. Like, this isn't the first thing. This isn't the first time, and as we've all three hit on repeatedly, it's only surprising when you see it written down, and it's surprising that these guys are now behind bars, or they were in holding for today. That's the only thing that's surprising about it. Nothing that was said, really. Like, that doesn't surprise, because we've seen it. We know, we hear it. The bettors are the smartest people when it comes to it. We all know, because we're handicapping these races every day. We're looking at the figures. We're looking at the numbers going, why did this horse improve 5 lengths? Why is this horse wheeling back so quickly and re-braking? Things that don't make a whole lot of sense. And I think what I've been the most bothered by I'm a Dodger fan. We're seeing all this cheating that's been going on in baseball right now. And what bothers the hell out of me, obviously, it was, the Astros and now possibly the Red Sox, the two teams that beat the Dodgers in the World Series. And what's the most frustrating about that cheating and this cheating right here, and I guess any cheating in general, is that I feel like if you're doing something wrong and you're doing something wrong, why are you going to be so brash and out there and like try to fight the people who tell you you're doing something wrong when you know you're wrong? Wouldn't you just be quiet, kind of go about your business and try to fly under the radar?
Yeah,
Gino, I got a couple of things here. First of all, it was 1-9 that you would bring up the Dodgers at some point in this conversation. So if you're listening and you took that bet, go and collect your money. Secondly, with regard to the Rick Dutrow situation, the one thing that I will say is this. If Rick Dutrow got 10 years and 10 to 15% of what the FBI is saying happened is true, I never want to see the names Jason Service, Jorge Navarro, or anyone else in that complaint in the racing forum as a licensed trainer at any track ever again. That's the standard that's been set. Live up to it right now.
I agree. And, something that a lot of people don't talk about, it's been mentioned a little bit, but, you mentioned these horses, drastically moving up, and even the indictment talked about Shecky Shabazz moving up after Service had him. And, there was another horse. What's that horse's name? Macagone that broke the track record at Saratoga last year off the Service. McKagan, right. What a lot of people don't talk about is the flip side of that. What about when somebody claims off of them? They regret it. If they even make it back to the gate, they run at a reduced level and regress tremendously. So they don't only move up when those guys get them, they go straight down when those guys lose them. So it's, it just screams of PEDs.
Isn't it funny, John, that like, it's hindsight's always 20/20, right? We know now and we can easily go back and look. But isn't it funny that when all of us are sitting here going, wow, this $16,000 claimer is in the Derby? Like, wow, this $16,000 claimer is winning all these huge races? we don't really see $16,000 claimers doing it. It was like we all had the biggest slap in the face right in front of us. We literally were all watching it go down.
I was at Saratoga the day that Shifty Sheik, a $25,000 claimer, ran slew of gold to a neck for Oscar Barrera. This is not a new thing. It's been around in this game for a long time. And, the tough part of this is that the cheaters will always be a step ahead of testing.
Yep.
It's always been that way.
Well, you heard, that's what one of the vets had said, right? When they were like, they were in one of the indictments, they're talking about how don't worry, they don't even have a test for this in the U.S. yet.
Right, exactly. And, one of the things they were doing, they were using those blood builders, which if you know what they do, they increase the red blood cell count. So you come up clean on most tests unless they do a test to determine whether the red blood cell count is elevated. And if you have a lot of red blood cells, you carry more oxygen, you don't get tired, you regenerate, it's a significant edge. So they think of everything, not only testing, but they use stuff that if you do, test for, you're going to come up clean, so those guys are always a step ahead. It's like that Balco guy in the steroid scandal in racing, you know what I mean? They're always a step ahead of the testing. And it comes down to money too. Racetracks don't want to spend, a lot of money. And, I'm not optimistic that as much good as we think will come from this unless, we get regulated from an outside source, which is not something that I really want to lobby for, but I just don't see another way because, the fact of the matter is racetracks across the United States cannot be successful in staggering post times on big stakes races on Saturday afternoon. How are they ever going to accomplish anything if they can't even accomplish that?
Yeah, and Andrew, what's really, I guess, disheartening about all of this is that so this investigation's been going on for 3 to 4 years now. It looks like. So one, while this investigation is going on, these trainers are continuing to cheat with other horses at tracks right under their nose. So literally, while they're being investigated, they're still not being caught. Like, what does that tell you about the level of testing, the level of what these racetracks are actually able to do overseeing things? Because they were getting looked at by the FBI, but they're still cheating at other tracks, and the tracks aren't able to find out about it. It's like, how is this still happening?
Okay, I'll break my response to that down in two parts. First of all, I'm going to play devil's advocate on the length of time that it took because clearly the FBI did their due diligence. And if you read that 45-page report, it's clear a lot of work went into that. And I'm not entirely sure that they're done releasing indictments just yet. Usually this stuff is the tip of the iceberg, and we're hearing more and more stuff come out even as the day is going on.
I mean, the harness world got rocked. There were a couple of, Nick Surik is the second leading trainer in North America in harness, and he got popped. A lot of the same vets that treat the same horses for thoroughbreds and harness race and the standardbreds.
Yep, exactly. And here's a question for you, and then I'll get to my second part of my answer. Going to what was said about Nanoosh, the partners in that horse own a lot of horses. You think that's the first time they've asked that question to a trainer?
Yes.
I don't think they're done. Now, for part two, I'm going to counter your question with a question. Look at Monmouth Park's entry box. Would Monmouth Park have been able to fill races without Jason Service and Jorge Navarro last year, or the year before that, or the year before that? I'm not saying that there was anything nefarious going on there, but I am saying that there's a lot to consider from a track perspective as far as making sure that dirty players are run off. How can you be trusted to do that when those dirty players have so much of the bloodstock on the backstretch? We need independent oversight. I'll agree with John on that. The question is, who is going to appoint these independent overseers? If it's Congress, that makes me queasy. If it's PETA, that makes me even queasier.
John, to kind of go a little farther on a point that you had just made a little while ago, what I think now we can start going back and looking at numbers and stuff. And there was a good kind of tweet thread that was posted earlier talking about, and this is O'Krunk on Twitter, talking about looking at Navarro and Service claiming data. Service only claimed twice from Navarro. Both the same card on September 30th, 2012 at Monmouth. Navarro only made one claim from Service on September 23rd, 2012. You're telling me that these two who claim a ton of horses at all levels don't accidentally claim a couple horses off of each other? I mean, by accident, just by the sheer number of horses that they run?
Well, I think they consciously avoid claiming.
Yeah.
I think that's obvious. I mean, one thing that the indictment made pretty clear is that, they were in communication with each other about what they were doing. And
now you start thinking about, like Andrew was just saying, at a place like Monmouth, how easy would it be for them when they have a couple entries in one race in small fields to just completely dictate an entire day's worth of races?
Absolutely. And getting back to what Andrew said about, tracks kind of, maybe looking the other way because these guys are filling entries. We know we have horse shortages. We can't fill entries. Look at Santa Anita right now. They're running 3-4 days a week.
They just canceled Friday, 5 days out because they think it's going to rain just to, because that rain, quote unquote, Yeah.
You think they're looking to throw anybody out of there? I don't.
And what's funny, just on that, the one that they did throw out, Hollendorfer, they didn't have any information, like any of this stuff at all. He gets tossed.
I'm so glad you said that because, there was a trend on Twitter today where people were saying, well, what can racetracks do if there's no proof? They could essentially do whatever they want. Look what they did to Hollendorfer. They can go up to you, me, or anybody else and say, you know what? We deem you undesirable. You're barred because we don't think you're in the best interest of racing, and you can't come on the grounds anymore. They did it years ago. I don't know if you guys remember an owner named Michael Gill. Michael Gill was running horses at Gulfstream Park and had Mark Schumann training for him and was winning at a very high percentage. And everybody was saying, oh, he was juicing, he was cheating, and blah, blah, blah. And you know what? They took away his stalls. They forced him to train off a farm. Then they stopped taking his entries, and they essentially ran him out of the game. They can pretty much ban or bar anybody that they want to. So when Jorge Navarro made that ridiculous video about juice, this, and that, they could have taken action then. They didn't need any proof. They could have saw the same stats that you and I and Andrew see in the form and every other handicapper sees and say, hey, listen, we know you're doing something. We don't know what it is. You're not welcome here anymore. And if racetracks did that, you'd see less of this.
It's just the slap on the wrists, Andrew, and, you can kind of respond to that in this too. Just, we've been so all of us. I mean, if you're not getting penalized for doing something wrong, and if the penalty is literally what would account to $1 from one of us, why the hell wouldn't you keep doing it? You have to have stricter penalties, or else people just don't even look at it like they got in trouble.
Precisely. And to answer John's question about racetracks running people off the grounds and whatnot, yes, it has happened. The problem is if you do that, you're opening yourself up to a very long, very painful lawsuit. And when people get put in that situation where their livelihoods are threatened, they become desperate people. My guess is that the people in custody right now are likely giving up a number of people that they've worked with or for on the backstretch in order to get shorter sentences or leniency or what have you. So in that situation, it's more a case of the tracks trying to save face. But at the same time, there's a difference between saving face and insulting the intelligence of the people that support your product. Like we've been saying, it doesn't take a Mensa member to have seen that something was wrong here. And the fact that it took this long for someone to take some sort of action on it, doesn't reflect well for racing at a time where racing really cannot afford, as you mentioned, Gino, to take many more in the way of unfortunate self-inflicted PR hits.
So, John, we've seen now it's confirmed that All the horses trained by Navarro in service that were entered Wednesday, Thursday, and Fridays have been scratched. Darren Zocali was tweeting out about some trainers in the harness world where some of their horses have been getting scratched. So what happens next now? What happens to these horses when they go to others? Like what's going to happen? Like you said, we keep hoping that things will change, but what really is going to come next?
Well, I heard a rumor from a pretty good source that Maximum Security would be moving to Bob Baffert's barn. I believe that's probably true. I got a call this morning from a trainer friend of mine who got a call from one of Navarro's owners saying, "Listen, will you take my horses?" And he was asking me, what's your opinion? Should I take them or should I not? So that's what's going to happen. These horses will move to other barns. Some of them will never make it back to the races and they'll just fall by the wayside because they probably can't run without the aids that they've been getting, because some of these nerve blocking aids and stuff like that, you take that away and these horses are going to be, aches and pains and not be able to run. So you'll have some that just fall through the wayside and don't make it back to the track. And you'll have others that just move into other barns. And that's what will happen with those horses. The rest of the aftermath, we'll have to see. But if I would have told you a week ago that, Joe Sharp would be a good guy in racing by next week, you'd have told me I'm nuts. So who knows what's going to happen,
Andrew, when you were watching that race or when you saw the replay of the Saudi Arabia race, you saw Maximum Security do what he did. I mean, I'm watching that race. He's struggling throughout. He's under a drive. He looks like he's absolutely done prior to the top of the stretch and like he's about to back up. And then he just keeps finding. And that is just not the type of trip you ever see a horse win in when they're under a drive for so long and they just keep finding a little bit more. A couple things. One, I mean, did you see it? What did you think of the race? And two, how could you be going to a place like Saudi Arabia with what we know about it not being the safest place in the world at all times and think about doing something like illegal in a big race like that where you could be cheating them out of money? I mean, are these all like kind of like balls that are flying around in your head too?
I got one thing to respond to that with, and I'd like to expound on something Jon said because I think this is fascinating. The first thing to answer your question, Saudi Arabia wanted American-style horse racing. They got it.
Yeah.
End of story. Yeah. And to tack on to what Jon said, this is what I found fascinating because I'm a nerd. Sharp Azteca was bred to 195 mares last year. 195. Jon mentioned that there are some horses that simply cannot run without the use of some of the substances that were laid out in the FBI report. How many sires are standing right now that would have fallen into that category and that are passing along these genetic deficiencies to the thoroughbred? This is why the thoroughbred breed is getting weaker and weaker and weaker, and why horses are running less and less and less. It's simply deplorable, and that's something that really needs to get fixed sooner rather than later, and that's something that I think is going a little bit ignored in all of the Twitter chatter. You really hope that somebody in a prominent position is paying attention to that.
That's just another layer that I didn't even think of, Jon, and that's what's so kind of scary about this story is that you just keep peeling things back. Like it starts on the very top from questions that we ask about, okay, who at the racetracks knew about this? Did stewards know about this kind of stuff? And they were just like Andrew was saying, they needed the entry, so they're kind of, it's not that big a deal. Did the owners of the horses know? Like we know that a lot of the vets and the people administering it know. Are we getting down to a point where there are riders that know? And then down all the way to the bettors. This is just everybody. It's so deep, Jon.
Well, let me ask you two questions. And Andrew, the first one is really for you because you kind of brought it up and it was something I was thinking about all day. What do you do if you're Coolmore right now?
That's a fabulous question. And I imagine that there's some legalese in the contract where it might be an opt-out clause of sorts. I imagine Coolmore has some of the world's best lawyers looking at that contract right now as they try to determine their options. But that's going to be a pretty cool thing to figure out because nobody knows where that's going to wind up. It's not like Maximum Security was bred in the purple. He's buying New Year's Day, who is not exactly an in-demand sire. So it's not like there's a lot for him to fall back on besides, oh, he won all of these races and all of these money, where he may have, and most likely did, have the benefit of performance-enhancing drugs in his system. The other thing, though, is who's to say that most of the horses he was running against weren't receiving the same stuff? It's
absolutely.
It's mind-blowing how deep this could go.
Right. And then, to follow up a little bit on what you said, Gino, I was thinking this. Okay, let's just, not to single out any rider, but, Irad Ortiz rides an awful lot at this meet for Jason Service and an awful lot for Jorge Navarro. Does he feel it when he gets on these horses? Does he know? I mean, I would think that a rider wouldn't want to put himself and other riders
right.
in danger.
It's scary. That's a little scary. You don't know how they're going to respond sometimes to the drugs. We see them that kick in, but it's like anything. It's like on a case by case basis. Some horses just don't like it. It's too much for them, and they can't handle it.
Right. But do these riders feel that?
How deep does it go?
Like that they're being put in harm's way when they get on these horses that are saddled by these guys? I mean, that's mind-boggling to me.
This is a story that is just, it's going to be, I think, day by day, we're going to continue to find out more and more and more. So I'll give you guys both like another couple minutes if you have anything else about this that we haven't mentioned, any other layers of it that you want to talk about. Andrew, first, is there anything that we haven't hit on that you're thinking or that's kind of, spinning around and you want to get out?
I want to hear more from the owners that are involved. We've heard some stuff from some owners, and there's more that's out there. I understand that we're probably not going to hear a lot from the owners of Nanoosh for various reasons, but that's the intriguing soundbite that I want, because if it's a certain enterprise, whether it's one part owner, another part owner, or another part owner, it has a lot of ramifications, especially because, oh, by the way, Ahmed Zayed is in bankruptcy court right now. So the depth of this is staggering. It's something that I'm not entirely sure horse racing has seen since the death of Aladar, which may or may not have been related to insurance money and the failures of Calumet Farm. I really think you've got to go back that far in order to get something that shakes the game to its core like this could.
And John, you wrote a good column kind of detailing a lot of what was happening, and Past the Wire is a great place to look at right now if you want to find out any information about this. There's a couple different things up there right now. Anything that we haven't talked about that's on your mind or that you want to get out about this story?
Well, I'll say this, and Andrew alluded to this a little bit. When you read the indictments, they do mention unindicted co-conspirator trainers that were making purchases of these substances. So that tells me that there are other trainers involved that are probably cooperating, and obviously were cooperating. They're unindicted co-conspirators. That's cooperating. So I do think that there's a good chance we will see some, more indictments and possibly more arrests and more of a shakeup. And, I hope it's the wake-up call that the game needs. And I don't know, I agree with Andrew. I don't know that, there's an easy outside regulatory answer, but I know we need some help from somewhere. And I love the sport, and I want it to survive, and I want it to be on the level. And I think that's the only hope for that to happen, because I don't think the industry can do it for themselves. So I'd just like to leave on that note saying that I hope that somehow this industry can turn this into a positive, whether it's through an outside regulatory agency or somehow within itself. But that would be my hope, to turn this into a positive and make horses like XY Jet, who died on the racetrack over this, not have died in vain.
And that's one of the reasons why I wanted to have both of you guys on here, because you, in different roles that we've had in racing, different ways that we've covered the sport, but you won't find people that I know that love horse racing as much. And I genuinely appreciate the fact that, Jon, this is what we talked about when we had you on a few weeks ago. And Andrew, you and I talk about this all the time, is that we and you two, I really appreciate you won't be afraid of being a little bit critical when it needs to be critical. And I've become just like the people that always want to preach positivity when like everything is burning down around you. You have to be able to look yourself in the mirror and say, we have a problem. And for a long time, horse racing did not want to do that. And I think you guys are great follows. And Jon, we're going to, work out some kind of a Past the Wire segment we've been talking about, where we're going to do, That's What G Said Past the Wire weekly, where we bring on some people for interviews, and we're going to talk with you each week. I always love the conversations. And Andrew at andrewchampagne.com, you're always doing the same. But I think we've done ourselves a disservice for a while when we have people that are covering the sport that don't cover the things that are happening in the sport.
I'll take this a little bit because it alludes to something that I mentioned. Horse racing is awful at taking criticism and acting upon it positively. I could relay a number of personal stories in that regard from dealings that I have had. I have been asked to delete tweets on my personal account because they are critical of racetracks. I wrote an article about 6 years ago that I'm not going to get into publicly here out of respect for a lot of people involved. It almost cost me my job. That's a story that needs to be told once certain people retire or die. Trust me, Gino, you're going to want to have me on. It's a doozy. But it's a case where people need to be able to take criticism for what it is from people that love the game and want to see it grow. We are not PETA. We are not trying to kill the sport by actively infiltrating it and phasing the game out. We're trying to make it so that there's a game for our kids to enjoy, for their kids to enjoy, and on and on and on down the line. We want this game to not just survive, but thrive. And in this current setting, with what we found out today, it's 6-5 and pick 'em whether or not the sport's going to have a chance to do that.
Jon, give us some of your closing thoughts on this.
Well, I really think we said it, everything that needs to be said. I think we, hit all the nails at some level. And I just reiterate, I just hope this is, the wake-up call that as an industry we need.
Jon, give us your information, the stuff for Past the Wire, and where can we follow you on social media?
Social media is easy at Jonathan Stettin. That's my personal Twitter. At Past the Wire is the Twitter for Past the Wire. And most of what I got to say you can find at pastthewire.com. Which is our website, which is a, feature article website and also a news website and handicapping website, just about everything that's horse racing. And pretty much we call ourselves Horse Racing Uncensored because, we like to call it the way we see it and call it the way it is without sugarcoating anything. So you can get a pretty straight take there on anything in this sport.
So, Jon, in a few days, the end of the week, we'll start discussing. We're going to have a weekly segment, I think, with you on here, and hopefully, in a few days, when we bring you back on, we'll be able to just focus on the handicapping stuff, which we like. I mean, I'm glad to have you on to talk about this, but I hate what we're talking about. I would much rather have had the two of you on to handicap a full card from Gulfstream. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, and we do pretty good when we do that. So.
We do. Yeah, we do. So great. Jon, thank you so much. Andrew, give us out there your plugs. Where can we find you and what are you working on?
Sure. AndrewChampagne.com is my personal site. On Twitter at AndrewChampagne. Constantly writing stuff for a bunch of different outlets. I'm writing stuff for OddsChecker US. I just started writing stuff for Bet America. I'll be going to Las Vegas next week. Really excited about that. Incidentally, Gino, my dad says hello.
Nice, Dave.
Going to be a lot of fun. Looking forward to that. You're going to want to follow along for both horse racing picks and some sports betting picks that I've been pretty lucky with over the past couple of months.
Andrew, Jon, I really appreciate it. We've spent over 45 minutes here. I think we got all the majority of the stuff out. And as information continues to fall, we're going to be following you along because I always appreciate getting both of your opinions on everything. So thanks a lot, Jon. Thanks a lot, Andrew. And look forward to talking to you guys again on That's What G Said very soon.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure being on with both of you.
Awesome stuff. Okay, folks, we'll be back in just a second. We'll do our final closing segment here, but a big thanks to Jon and to Andrew. One of the sponsors of That's What G Said podcast is Cindy Carava, full-service realtor, and I am here over in Glendora at Coldwell Banker with Cindy Carava. Cindy, how was 2019 for you? Tell us a little bit about what kind of stuff you were working on.
Hi, Gino. Thanks for having me. 2019 was just really great. I had a great year selling homes all the way from Altadena, Arcadia, Monrovia, out to Upland and Ontario just recently. The market has been really good. We're looking forward to 2020 with an increase in home prices about 5.8% this year, opposed to last year where it was a little softer. We saw more like homes averaging about 3.5% in increase in value. It's also looking great for buyers. The interest rates right now are going to be staying under 4%. So if you've been on the fence about thinking about buying a home, now is the time to do so with interest rates still staying low.
And you offer more services than just the buying, selling, and leasing homes. Tell us about some of the other services that you offer and what a full-service realtor really is.
So you're right, Gino. Besides me being a full-service realtor of finding properties for my clients to buy or selling their homes or finding rentals for them, I also have a plethora of resources like handyman, contractors, electricians, plumbers. I even, if you're thinking about getting a home loan, I actually work with 2 great lenders that I can recommend to anybody.
And you're all over the internet, social media, websites. Let us know some of the places where we can find you. I know I've seen some reviews on Yelp and on Zillow. Everyone always has positive things to say. Everybody hears me raving about you all the time. But where can everyone else find out information about you or contact?
Thank you, Gino. Yeah, I am on Facebook and Instagram and LinkedIn. And you can contact me on my website, which is www.cindycarava.com, or my email, which is cindyc.realtor@gmail.com, or feel free to call or text me on my cell phone, which is 626-394-6400.
Cindy is awesome. She's one of the kindest and most genuine people I've ever met. I promise you, you will enjoy every minute you interact with her. So thank you very much, Cindy. Appreciate all of your support from That's What G Said podcast.
Thank you, Gino. Have a great day, everyone.
Big thank you to Jon and Andrew for coming on discussing all that. I mean, it's a lot, as you've heard, and we're going to be constantly finding out more and more and more as the days go on and the hours go on. So big thanks to the both of them. You'll be hearing a lot more from them on That's What G Said. Let's get into our next interview. This is going to be with Andy Villanueva. We're going to break down we talk a little bit about, we get kind of Andy's thoughts for the first 5 minutes or so on everything that went down. And then we go through Tuesday, Sam Houston. We go through the full card, give his thoughts on each race. And then we do the same thing for Wednesday. Go through the full card with his thoughts on each of the races. So enjoy Sam Houston players as we go through the Tuesday and the Wednesday cards for Sam Houston. Back for another episode of That's What G Said podcast. He was very good handicapping Sam Houston last time we talked to him, and he's one of the folks out there who handicaps Sam Houston each and every day. It's our good friend, handicapper Andy Villanueva. Andy, how you doing today?
Great. A little bit of a crazy day, but
yeah,
it wouldn't be a Monday racing Twitter if it wasn't crazy, right?
Right. So before we get into the Tuesday and the Wednesday handicapping for Sam Houston, just we talked a little earlier in the show with Andrew and with Jon about everything that went down. Just kind of give us some of your thoughts. Now we know that Jason Service and Jorge Navarro were among 27 alleged by the government to have administered illegal medications. I'm just reading the headline right from the DRF, and this was actually even more than just thoroughbred. This got into the harness world too. This is just a scandal that is a massive, massive magnitude.
Yeah, it's kind of like one of those things where you kind of go in and, you hear the rumblings on the racetrack, especially if you're in there every single day. But, part of me is like surprised about the fact that somebody finally did something about it. I just didn't think it was going to be to such a magnitude that, there's an indictment. One guy's facing 20 years, another guy's facing 5 to 10. It's crazy when you think about it, but
and this is happening Like all while the maximum, like the investigation has been going on for the last few years. Like while I'm just tweeting later day, like, man, I've never really been a maximum security fan, but this horse really impressed me today. Like, wow, way to dig down deep. It's just right in front of our faces,
Yeah, and the other thing that really is sad about this whole situation and is, XY Jet is kind of going to be the poster boy for this in a bad way. And I feel bad for the horse because, he gave up a lot. The one thing that really bothers me, and this is more on the owner's side, and I'm probably going to get a lot of flack from it, but, you got to step up and say something if you're an owner, especially like somebody as well known as Rockingham Ranch, who went out and said, well, we really feel bad about losing this horse. It was a horse of a lifetime. And, we really needed to take our time, and we're really sad. But, I haven't seen any tweets, haven't seen anything saying to the contrary. And to me, that's a big indicator that they either knew or they kind of knew it and they were kind of hiding it. And they weren't hiding it, but they were,
just turning a blind eye. Yeah.
Turning a blind eye. But, I told a friend of mine, Scott Calabrese, who's too close to call, who does a lot of great Derby work. I told him, I said, when you're first on the racetrack, you're kind of naive of who the barns are. They kind of use chemists kind of way. So you kind of like don't know it. But once you're around the racetrack and you see the same guy going to certain barns, you kind of start asking questions, or you kind of put two and two together when the win percentages start to go high. And, I'm not naive to not know that this happened, but at the same token, it's kind of a sad situation.
It really is, because this is one of these things that we are recording this at, like 9 Eastern time on Monday, and this has just been out, not even for 24 hours now. This is like and there's so many layers to this now with, from everything that we're just reading and all these charges to now these people are under arrest, to even the little things that it comes all the way down to, man, I feel bad for how many different bettors have gotten screwed in the last decade, right? Betting against or in a race where you're looking at these horses going, there's no way this horse can step up into this spot. I mean, the perfect example is one of this is like we're all scratching our head going, there's a horse that was a 16 claimer that's winning the Kentucky Derby, finishing, crossing the wire first in the Derby and winning these major races all over. That just doesn't happen. I'm going to go and say that I'm going to go and say that, and it's going to sound like I'm naive, but I think I'm going to go and say that, yes, I think a part of it was the horse may not have been a maiden 16 claimer when he first ran. Sure.
Cash a bet kind of deal. But you got to there are certain times you look at those races that he runs, and, you read about what some of the medications they're using are, and you're like, that's why he broke in the Saudi,
he's looking like he was struggling.
Race. And,
I mean, he was under a drive. And it feels like those are the kind of things that your average horse that's when they back up. They don't keep going. They don't kick in another gear. And that's, it's just been, there's so many of us bettors that have it's just left a sour taste in our mouth. And as this continues to unravel layer by layer, we're going to keep discussing it, and we're going to keep responding and reacting to it. And I'm sure when we have you back on again to talk more Sam Houston in a week or two or whenever it is, there'll be a lot more to this story now. I just wanted to get some of your initial reactions.
And I think I tweeted out, I don't think that this is the end of what we're hearing. I think there's going to be some stuff that we're going to find out about the West Coast, because
Sure. Oh, do you think it's just in one small located place? No way.
No. And I mean, come on. I mean, I know we've both been on the West Coast. You're still there. I mean, I know for a fact there are certain trainers that are winning at a high percentage that I just don't buy that they're winning at a high percentage because they put horses in the right spot.
Yeah. Yeah. It's just, this is one of those things that's weird. It's good and it's bad, right? It's good that we're finally kind of starting to crack down and maybe this will be a start of something. But this was definitely not the time for another big scandal in horse racing after what happened last year. And you get one or two more of these, and the public perception, a lot of people are just going to say like, what is this still going on for? And that's it's a little scary because we're starting to get to the point where we're not too far away from that now, Andy.
Oh, no. I mean, I think I read somewhere it was either Greg Bernick, it might have been Greg Bernick that tweeted out, we're all waiting for the Horse Racing Integrity Act to be approved, but that's 5, maybe 6 years down the road. Horse racing may not have 5, 6 years.
Yeah.
They may only have 2 years because it's all self-inflicted. It's nobody can touch us. And now all of a sudden they're finding out, oh, wait a minute, hold on. Now today's day and age with social media, things don't get hidden very long. I mean, I was driving to work this morning, and I saw a tweet from Ray Pollock saying they're shaking down barns. And I'm like, the feds are shaking down barns. This is not good. That was a first thought process.
It's going to be little, like you said, this is just the very beginning, and we're going to find out little by little more and more and more as this continues to go on. But we could sit here and have another really long conversation about it, and we'll transition over to the handicapping because I know it'll be nice to kind of, for a little while at least, focus back on the horses tomorrow and be playing some Sam Houston and, spend a couple hours where we're trying to make a few bucks and maybe think some positive versus a lot of the negative that we've been going through the last 24 hours. And one thing that's really cool, Andy, I mean, it's been an unbelievable meet so far at Sam Houston. We've seen a lot of the numbers go up, lots of positives all over the place. And now what's cool for the next few weeks of the Sam Houston Thoroughbred meet, we're going to get an extra day of racing now. So not only will it be the Wednesday afternoon racing with the Friday and Saturday night racing, we're going to get Tuesday day action, which kicks off tomorrow.
Yeah, and the best part about it is I think I think Sam Houston has done a great job of being able to promote the racing here, especially with certain different events like the dog race, like corgi racing and camel and ostrich races and all that. But the product speaks for itself, and
Good.
If it was any indication, it was Friday night when I was out there and amongst the people and just listening to how excited they were and, how cool it was to be out there and making a little money, especially when the big horses started winning races there.
Okay, let's jump right into it because we have 2 racing cards that we're going to talk about. So we'll just kind of quickly touch on each of the races, give some of our thoughts, and then move on. And it looks like on both the Tuesday and the Wednesday cards this week, we're going to get the double pick 5 situations, I think, where you can play the early and the late pick 5. So let's go to race number 1 on Tuesday. 15 claimers, non-winners of 3. The 1, Bella Alicita, is going to take a lot of money for Asmussen. We've seen that Elliott's going to be coming over and riding now on, it looks like Tuesdays and Wednesdays, I think, at least for the next few weeks. He picked up a couple wins riding for Asmussen last week. And so he's going to be aboard the 1, Bella Alicita, who's probably going to be tough in here. And then we have a horse like the 6 Headlining, who's been really, really good since coming to Sam Houston, and sharp, won 2 races pretty nicely. I thought the 7 City on the Nile was probably one to include coming back to the dirt here, and the slight cut back to 7. How do you see this first race?
I like Headlining. I think right now she's in such good form, and Matt Bear is winning at such a high clip there that it's kind of hard not to include her in any tickets. But I actually like Broke Financing here on the far outside in the first race here. 12-1. I think she's 12-1 on the morning line, but she's coming in from Turfway Park, and that synthetic to dirt angle. Sometimes people don't like it. Here, it's been kind of weird. Some horses really take to it and some don't. And I don't think this horse really wanted to run. This horse has won both races on the dirt. And I think she'll probably go back to that form and run a bit better race. And Tommy Short's had a good meet here with limited stock. So I don't mind going with Broke Financing. You got to use Headlining with the way her form is. And, another horse that might not take a lot of action, but you got to take a look at is first off the claim for Diodoro with Nocturnal Mission.
Yep. So, yeah, I think we hit on a lot of the contenders there in that opener, which kicks off the early pick 5. Let's go to race number 2, which starts the pick 4 if you're more of a pick 4 player. And what's great about all of these wagers, they're all doubles, pick 3s, pick 4s, pick 5s, all 12% take out that industry low. They're going to go 5 furlongs sprinting on the turf in here. You know, the one, Taishara, with the inside speed, hasn't raced in a couple months, but will probably be involved. I thought this was actually a more of a wide open race, though. I mean, I could start building cases for some. I'm going to throw the 4 in some of my exotics. I thought the 6 take the over, with Parker jumping aboard. If you kind of key in on a couple of the grass races, they're not that bad. You go to the outside with Cat's Candy, who's in nice form. I mean, you can build cases for many in here, Andy.
You can. I really like take the over in the spot. I think the trip is perfect for her. I think the way her running style is going to be perfect for this racetrack. And, CJ Thoroughbreds and Calhoun wanted to get her on the turf last time and it got taken off. So they're bringing her right back into a turf spot. And she's going to be tough in that spot with that sort of thing. I think she's right now, I'm leaning toward her being my best bet of the day, because I just think it's going to set up for her really well.
That's in race number 2. Let's jump to race number 3. These are Texas bred maidens, 7,500 going 5.5 furlongs. And King Bling was pretty good in his debut. You kind of look up and down the race. I don't know, maybe Moro Dreams if they go, but I don't know if anybody else is going to be quick enough to put the pressure on him. So I have a tough time going against him. I think the 9 is one who might be able to work out a nice trip. Connections don't win a lot, but this is actually a pretty good spot getting off the rail. I thought, logically the 6 I'd put in some of my exotics. Who are some of the horses you're using in this third?
I'd probably go really deep in this race because this is not like the most, prolific set of horses.
Sure. They're hard to trust. It's a tough group to trust.
They're really hard to trust. And, I can also see a 30-1 shot winning. In fact, I do have Sunny Perfect in case everybody in front of her just stops, which is conceivable. I do like Satin's Little One a lot because she did beat King Bling in her debut and came back and ran next out against tougher company and now right back down.
Off the rail, he gets off the rail a little bit too, which probably help with his running style. Like he gets shuffled a little bit from the inside, and then you got to go around horses. It'll probably help just being drawn to the outside a little bit more for him.
Yeah, and Jomo taking a big cutback and cutback off the turf to dirt kind of angle and dropping it into class probably is better because those races he's run against main claimers at 6 furlongs have been really good. So I would throw Jomo in there too, just because, anybody's going to win this race, and wouldn't surprise me if the longest shot on the board wins it.
Okay, race number 4. I'm going to go fishing for another little bit of a price in here, but I'll use along with some of the logicals. I thought the 3, the 8, and the 10 were logical horses, but I like the 7 a little bit. Last I knew, I just don't know what's really wrong with his turf form. Look at his 2-back turf race. That was going 5 furlongs. Then go back and look at the mile turf race, previously when at Remington Park. I think this horse has got a little bit of a shot to at least hit the board in here. I'm going to throw him in some of my exotics, the 7. Give us some of your 4th race thoughts. This is a first level allowance going long on the grass.
I'm salivating at the 10, Bell Ringer. Mr. Strange came back to win an allowance race on Saturday night or Friday night, and he finished 2nd to Bell Ringer. Bell Ringer's getting back on the turf, which is probably his preferred surface, and I just think he's going to go to the front, and Ryan gets along with this horse so well. I just don't see anybody catching him on the front end.
Yeah, and what's nice too, another one who's drawn well, because if he needs to sit a little bit, like if somebody goes to the lead, or it's so nice to be drawn to the outside when you have the speed, because then you have options. You kind of know how fast you need to go in order to get there to clear off, or you can just kind of press just off. I've got the 10 everywhere also, Bell Ringer.
And one thing that people need to understand, especially here at Sam Houston, that 1 mile, I think that 1 mile is going to start in the chute. So they're going to have some time to kind of gather themselves up. And it's not like the old Hollywood Park where if they started in the chute, it'd be a quick run to that left turn. And if you're hung out wide, you're pretty much stuck out there the entire time. This is more of a kind of just goes into the flow of a left turn, and you're not really in trouble there. So that's another reason why you got to like the 10.
And we'll move on to race number 5, which is a 5,000 non-2. They're going to go a mile in here. And I'm going to put the 6, I think, on top, Smiling Cobra, who I think could be a little bit closer today, stretching out. This is one of those races where I don't really love anyone, though. I just kind of slightly have the 6 on top. We kind of talked about a race like this, that we just don't have horses that are in the all that great of form right now, most of this field.
No, not at all. And I think the one thing that I think you got to throw the 3 in Swaneeland because he's shown speed early. But other than that, everything that's stretching out for the first time really doesn't have any speed whatsoever. And this one at least has shown that he can sit near the front, especially at 7 furlongs, stretch out, super saver on the top. I kind of like him a lot in this spot because I think he might get the lone lead, to be honest with you.
I have the same 2 you did on a top tier above everybody else. I had 6 and 3, and then after those 3, then you can start building cases. Like the 1 should come flying late, but he just has absolutely no speed. He's tough to trust. But if they go too quick, he could come and pick up the pieces. I mean, I even thought a horse like maybe like the 2 is just like a complete flyer. Maybe he can just kind of fall into a decent trip. The 4, Buddy Rocket's another one under, but I kind of felt like the 3 and the 6 might be a little bit of a tier above.
Yes, I agree.
Okay, let's move on to the late pick 5, which starts in race number 6. These maiden 50,000, 5 furlongs on the turf course here. And the number 8, Majestic Queen, was very impressive in the turf debut, dropped in class, came over from Fairgrounds for Asmussen and went 5 furlongs and was a good second, and will probably be really close to the front end because in this race too, for a 5 furlong turf race, there isn't that much speed, really. I mean, there aren't a ton of horses who absolutely need the lead or have shown really, really good sprint speed. She probably won't be too far out of it. I might use her with, maybe the 4, Joy to the World, who I think is a little bit sneaky on the grass. And then after those 2, I could see, the 7, the 9 underneath. But I'm not going to try to get too cute and go completely against Majestic Queen here. I'll probably just use her and one other.
So it's possible it may rain. And I say may rain because every time I've said it may rain on a Tuesday, it doesn't rain, and then it rains later in the day.
Yeah.
And then I'm messed up because I handicap for mud, and then it doesn't stay on, and then I re-handicap and it stays on turf, and then it goes off turf. But I like Gracely. I think turf to dirt angle here. She's gonna probably stretch. She's probably gonna be on the rail. Well, she'll be on the rail, and that might actually be a positive in this spot, especially at 5 furlongs. And I just don't see, I don't trust Majestic Queen, regardless of where she's come from. And Golden Paris and Joy to the World might have a shot to be up close, but I just like Gracely. You're going to get a price, and maidens, I'm not going to single a maiden race just to single a maiden race because it's 4 to 5. I'd rather get a price. Sure. Especially when it's a pick 6 race. If you're going to single something to try to scoop up the entire ticket, you take a long shot on that spot.
Gracely from the inside for Andy in race number 6. Let's get to race number 7, which starts the late pick 4. And yeah, this to me was one of those races that I really have no shot. So I'm going to take I'm just kind of wondering who sits the trip in here. Yeah, good luck on this one. So you kind of lead the way here. Who do you like? I mean, I've got written down 6, 3, 2, 7, 9, 13, 11. I mean, I just had absolutely no clue.
So throw that Jim's Orbit race out for the 11 Wonders of His Love, and the horse completely fits here. He should have won. He really, really ran a huge race 2 back. On the lead the entire time. He got headed at the top of the lane, battled on, and started coming back late and couldn't hold off the winner. So I'm going to go back and try Wonders of His Love at this spot. I just think he's just a little bit better than some of these. But then after that, it's kind of like a cluster as far as who you want to choose. I went with the band because I think he might sit the best trip because he's going to sit right off of the pace.
Mm-hmm.
And also Detroit 66, who's completely in form,
yeah,
but doesn't like to win. So, I mean, you kind of your best bet here is to just get a dartboard and just throw it and hope that, and that's about the best. But I would go those three right there are must use for me. I thought Grady's Cat was sitting in a good spot last time, and you know, if you go back and look at that race where I think one of the riders ended up getting dropped because it got really tight, and he really finished on strong. So, I mean, maybe throw in the 7-2, but I mean, it's kind of one of those things to where it's kind of tough.
Let's get to race number 8. This one is a maiden 7,500, and I think there are a couple in here that I'm going to take a look at. I was impressed with the return race for the 8, Prancing Miss Tissy, who hadn't raced from September to February, came back in February, and that was against, maiden 62s, and actually ran pretty well behind the sharp horse that we've mentioned, Headlining, who came out of that race to win another one. Head Over Boots has some speed from the inside. The 9, Laura and Lucas can pass horses, comes in, hasn't raced since September of last year, but at least this one can maybe pick up some pieces late. Those are kind of the horses for me. I mean, it wouldn't take much of a first-time starter like the 7, Whimsical Tale, to beat this group because there are no monsters in here. Who do you like in here?
I like the 8, Prancing Miss Tissy. She's just better form. Even if you go back past that last race, she's going to need that race off of it.
Yep.
Castellanos fired off the layoff with a horse that was a year and a half off on Friday. Come back with this horse. If she even runs remotely to that race in August, 3 starts back, she wins this race for fun.
Yeah, she'll just be a little sharper. She'll have a little more. She's got that nice tactical running style where she doesn't have to be right on the lead, but she doesn't have to be coming from dead last. So I think there's a lot of things to like about her in this 8th race. So the 8's in race number 8 for both me and Andy. Let's move on to the late daily double there in race number 9. They're going to go Texas Bred's first level allowance, going a mile on the turf course in here. It's one of those weird races where you have 7 horses that all come out of the same last race. 7 of these horses were in the February 5th race. So you're looking at that trip kind of going, what happened? I kind of like the 1, Macho Flyer, a little bit out of that race. Kind of got the shuffle, was behind horses, was on heels, didn't really have the best of trips, and, Disinclined's interesting. I think also with Parker jumping aboard, you have Moro Cool, who looks like a player right back, is one of the few that doesn't come out of that race, actually. Where do you stand in this one?
This was one of my dartboard races, in all honesty. I mean, I kind of like a couple, but, I kind of like Tornado Man a little bit. I think sitting off the pace.
He was favored in that group last time out.
Yeah, sitting off the pace. Got a ton of money, if I'm not mistaken. I think he got a ton of money. Paulina Ramirez came in to ride this horse on Houston Classic Day. And this was the race that Gray Hope won. And Gray Hope came back and hasn't run well. He ran on the dirt the last 2 times and then ran on turf on Friday night, and he didn't do much at all in that race other than make a huge sustained run and then flatten out. But I kind of like Tornado Man. I think you're going to get a little bit of a price, and it's kind of a good way to start the daily double with a price like that. And you got to throw in Disinclined. I think he'll run a better race than the last time out. But the thing with this race is there's a ton of speed up in the front. So it could be one of the horses from the back that are going to win the race.
And let's try to close things out in race number 10, 5,000 beaten claimers, going a mile in here. I'm going to throw the 1 on my tickets as a little bit of a flyer with some inside speed in a race that I don't think there's a whole ton of it. I do respect the 9 quite a bit. 15 Love Black, I thought it was very good, and that was at Open 5, and so this seems like a really good fit for the 9. If you wanted to go a little deeper, like King told me, one of these days he's going to win, he's going to find a group, but he's 0 for his last 14. He doesn't really have that killer instinct. I'm fine because he's a big fit at the level, so he wouldn't shock me, and I'm not one that's saying completely toss him every time. But I think, I can find others that I like a little bit more in here. How do you close out the card?
So I have basically bet against King Ptolemy like the last 7 times. I'm trying to pull something up right now on him, but you kind of took the wind out of my sails with Divine Favor. Rail,
nice.
Stretch out.
Right? Yeah.
Stretch out. Last race of the day. Go home with a big prize. Might as well see what happens with that. But I really like that horse, regardless of what his odds are. He's, these horses haven't won in a long time. I was looking through it. He's also 4 of 5 in the money at this distance, and he's won 2 of 5. So how can you go against that?
Yeah.
And then the other horse that you got to kind of look at, and I know it's crazy to go with 2 big prices, but this is Sam Houston, and it happens quite a bit. Saturday's Hangover. This horse already won this year, and this race, a lot of the horses here haven't won either this year or last year.
Yeah, and
so
you know what?
Why not take a shot with a couple long prices and hope that this horse comes in and wins?
I agree.
This horse's last win was December 16, 2018, King Ptolemy.
Yeah, and you're looking at Saturday's Hangover has won twice in just the last 5 months, last 6 starts. So
yeah.
I'm completely fine taking a shot against him. He's one of those horses who will probably run up and complete the exotics in some way. But if you're just playing like a pick 4, pick 5, or on the win end, you know what? He's not one that I'm gonna beg you to use at a short price. So let's try to get a little good run for our money with the 1. What's nice about a long shot like this is from the rail with the speed. At least we're not gonna be like 20 lengths out of it trying to come from behind. I always like when we get a long shot that can give you a good run for your money, get involved early, and that's, I think, what we got here to close things out.
Yeah, I agree. I totally agree with you on this. And not to mention, like I said earlier for this race card, the 1, if he goes off at 30-1, I guarantee you not a lot of people are going to put him on the ticket.
Yeah, and even if he gets bet down late, he's not going to be. You're right. He's not going to be the horse that's on pick 4s and pick 5s when those races start in races 6 and 7.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, let's move on to Wednesday, and we'll try to have back-to-back winning days for you over at Sam Houston. Race number 1, we're going to have Texas-bred maiden $15,000 claimers kick things off. And this race, I mean, nobody in here has done absolutely anything on the racetrack. You were just, I mean, the 6 has a couple of decent races. They were last year at Lone Star against better, but even those races were beaten 6 and 10 lengths. I mean, you're just kind of projecting, looking at horses who made about a little trouble, who you think might end up on the lead in here. I thought the 5 had trouble from the rail, and now Cabrera jumps aboard, and maybe, getting a fast track will help. So I have the 5 on top, but after that, I mean, yeah, this isn't the strongest group in the world.
No, I agree. And, I do like the 5. I think the 5 with Cabrera coming on board is a really good rider switch. The other horse I really like is the 1, Wit Loves Tacos.
Yes. He had a tough trip.
Turf to dirt. Yeah, he did have a tough trip. So take away the fact that they probably took care of him the last, half of the race. And you got a really good shot with that horse.
So let's use the 5 in some of our early exotics also. Yeah, the 6 is going to be dropping in class with the blinkers on. They'll probably try to send the horses. And the 3, Dew Hopper, got in some traffic. He was just tough to handle. But I like the 5 and the 1. Those are actually my top 2 too. So let's try to get those as we move on to a horse who's going to be a very, very heavy favorite in race number 2. That is Brightest, who comes out of a race where he was 4th in a stakes race. The 3rd place finisher just came back to win just a few days back. Tell Me You Love Me. Brightest from the rail, going to be tough. I'll use one other with Brightest, though, Andy. I do think the 5's a little bit interesting, who, she got squeezed back at the start and had no shot last time out. 2 back at the 15 non-2 level. She was a pretty solid second, and if for some reason Brightest gets dueled a little bit, isn't able to clear the field, I think this is a horse who might be able to sit a nice trip.
Here's the thing that I really didn't like about the 1 in that last race. Those aren't fast fractions for Sam Houston, and she backed out.
Yeah,
she completely backed out, and there's going to be horses that are going to go with her to the front. and one of them is their stablemate Triple Bowl Baby. And I like the 4. We talk about the fact that, there's a lot of times, especially when you go to certain tracks, you see rider-trainer combos. The fact that Stuart Elliott is riding for Asmussen on a Tuesday tells me enough for me to say come back with that horse, especially when Rudy Guerra's here and he's not on this horse.
That's Triple Bold Baby, the number 4 in race number 2. In the third race, 15,000 non-winners of 4 claimers mile there. I have the 2 who on top, Cabrera jumping aboard, who kind of loomed up and then flattened out a little bit last time out. The 4, 5. I'm going to take a shot against the 5 in here. I think. I just think this is a horse who's better on the dirt, who's better on the turf, excuse me, and will probably get a lot of money on the grass. People will see the Oklahoma Derby race in the mix. I'm okay with taking a shot against this one here. Are you going to be more in the stance of singling, keying in on this horse, or are you going to be spreading out a little bit?
I really don't like the 5 very much in here.
Yeah.
I mean, I have him on my tickets because you kind of have to have him in case he comes back to his class from earlier or from the middle of 2019. But I kind of like Asmussen's horse here, Troy Ounce, stepping down.
Yep.
Delta Downs, their 1 mile and a 16th is kind of really weird because it's not really a traditional. It's kind of like more of a Pomona racetrack where you kind of have to go 2 turns, but it's a longer 2 turns. So I'm kind of going to throw that race out. Horses either like that track or they don't. And Elliott's riding instead of usually Cabrera. And then I'm also going to use the horse for that Riley Gridson has in Zip Zap Time. Yep. I think that horse is in such good form right now. And that 7.5 furlong race is usually kind of like the mile race at Delta Downs. And he ran huge that day and he's on the inside. So I would probably use the 4 and the 6.
Yeah, I have the 2 with those 2, so I have 2, 4, and 6. We're both not like too fond of the 5 View Magic. Okay with going in a different direction in that one. Race number 4 is 5,000 claimers, non-winners of 3, 6 furlongs in here, and I'm going to be watching this movie soon with my son, I'm sure. And I'm going to give Rat-Tat-Tooie a little bit of a shot here. I think she's a little bit her race last time out. What's funny? She was 120-1, and she was in the race with Papa's Girl, and the race that Castanuela, who's really, really fast, ends up winning. And she was not far behind Papa's Girl in there. And Ratatouille didn't have the best of trips. She's going to go second off the bench. She's going to take a little step forward here. Other 3, I think, makes a lot of sense. Looking back at that 3-back race at Remington, you're coming out of a couple much, much tougher spots. I had the 6 and 3 kind of as my top tier. I mean, the 1 is probably the speed of the speed in here, though, Andy. So where do you stand in this 4th?
I kind of like Shanghai Woman.
I have her in 4th spot, yeah.
She's
should be closer
kind
today,
of tricky. Right? She's going to be closer. Also, I don't think she wants anything to do with the 5.5 furlongs. She won at 6 furlongs back, and then she ran a huge race on the muddy surface 2 starts back. Frank Dioro you got to use, and as much as Papa's Girl ran a kind of a good race the last time out, I just don't see her going in the right form. So no. I probably wouldn't play her, but I in fact, Shanghai Woman is probably my single for the day. Is my best bet of the day for Wednesday.
Yeah, I'll use her in a lot of my exotics with the I have 6-3, 1 and 2, and I think she's going to be. She showed a little bit of speed, but I just think she's a little bit better with the target. I'd love to see her sit a little. That would be like the perfect type of trip for her. And you have one of the best pilots aboard around Sam Houston to try to work out that trip for you. In race number 5, this one was one of those races where I started, kind of grab bagging and kind of making cases for everyone. So when I do, I always try to lean towards a horse who I think is going to be a big price. I'll look for the 7 in here in some spots. Blazing Guitar. That turf form. Just go back to the turf form. Look at the races at Evangeline. They're not bad at all. And I thought the last effort was actually a decent little race. If you watch it at Delta, it's kind of on the front end and then gets kind of shuffled back a little bit and then comes on again late. So I'm going to give the 7 a look. I do respect the 5 D Rocketman quite a bit, who didn't really get moving until late. I have the 10 Patriot in some spots. One of the 2 siblings, one on turf, the only one to actually try the turf. The 2 inside horses are very live. So, I mean, I did have a tough time really kind of keying in or singling in on anyone in this race.
I went with Reverend AJ. I think he's going to get the perfect trip. He'll probably sit off the early speed and then make a late run. And Ron Moquette is winning at such a high rate there at Sam Houston. It's kind of hard not to take advantage of an 8-1 with him.
It was his kind of speed too. Yeah.
Yeah. And I'm also going to throw in the Asmussen horse Patriot. I think he's going to be making a late run for sure on this track. And I've also went ahead and used Mighty Merle. I think Mighty Merle might sit a good trip too, just off of the early pace. So I think this race is screaming a price. And to your point with Blazing Rocket, Sarah Davidson is on fire right now. So bet against your own risk as far as that's concerned.
Late pick 5 starts in race number 6 here. We have a mile non-2 allowance with a favorite entry of Empire of Gold and Irish Silver. If they both run in here, they do complement each other very well with their running styles, where you have Empire of Gold, who's going to be stretching out from sprints and will likely be right on the lead. And then you have Irish Silver, who's showed more late running tactics in both sprints there. But this is stretching out to a mile. I did think the entry would be tough in here. I guess I'm not really getting too cute in any way, but I thought the 6 actually did have a little bit of a shot. This is another case where we're looking at the Asmussen Elliott connections, and I'm just like looking and wondering, he hasn't really done a whole lot wrong. He's faced open company so far. He hasn't really run a bad race. He has some speed. He's won going a mile, and he's drawn to the outside. So I'm going to make sure to use the 6 at least in some of my exotics.
I really like the 5, Bring Me a Check. Brett Calhoun didn't do much wrong in his local debut. Came in from Fairgrounds, won like a early mini favorite. 3rd place finisher Clever Union came back to win in his next start. And then the other horse, I'm not fond of either the entry. I mean, Irish Silver won because Empire of Gold basically softened up the speed for him in his start, and then Empire of Gold caught an easy trip. So I'm not real fond with either of them. I really like Bring Me a Check in here, and the other Asmussen horse that's Triple Crown nominated, Code Runner.
Yeah, I think Code Runner is going to be tough too to leave out of the exotics, and he should most likely kind of sit. I don't think he's as quick as a couple in here, but he'll probably end up working out kind of that like mid-pack trip in this 6th race. Let's move on to race number 7. This was one horse that I talked with Carl Broberg a little bit about last week. I'm a Barn Cat, who came back on 3 days of rest and won most recently. She's drawn to the inside. She's never been on the turf, but she has very, very good speed. I mean, I think she's going to be quick. I think she's going to be tough, but a horse like this that's never been on the grass, I have a tough time being extremely confident about. I kind of like the 5, Rosie Bear. I've been waiting for her to get back to the grass. I think the last time she was on the grass sprinting, she was going against First Level Allowance Company at Churchill. That was just a much, much tougher group. So I'm going to make sure to use the 5 in a lot of spots.
Yeah, I mean, even if you go back to August and July.
The Arlington races, yeah.
Those Arlington races, and for those unfamiliar with Arlington on the turf, those optional 8s are really tough. They're not easy races to win. I'll tell you one horse that really intrigues me, and I actually told Scott Calabrese, if this filly ever runs for 5,000 or 7,500, I may try to get an ownership group together to buy her, and that's Lina Rink. She just is such a honest filly, and she has the type of running style you like on this track, and she hasn't caught the turf here yet. And I know she likes this turf course. So you got to use the 3. I got to go with the 1 and the 1A. I think both of them are going to be really tough in this spot. But yeah, Rosie Bear also. So those are the 3 that I used in this spot too.
I think we have the same thing, 5-1-3 for me in this 7th race. Let's move on to race number 8. This was one of the more difficult races for me, I think, especially in the late races, to get a real feel for. Because, I mean, they a lot of them I thought looked pretty similar. You know, Mr. Tickle was in really good form, and he's still in great form. He was a good second last time out. The two outside horses, Dark Arden, Deep Explorer, seems like he's in a much, much better spot in here. The 4 Ebrio has good speed. You know what you're going to get there. The 2 Excavation may have just needed his first start at Sam Houston. I thought he ran really well. Man, there are many I could use in here. Which way are you going?
I'm going with Unbroken Song. I really like this horse. This horse fits here. Going back to a mile, we talked about Sarah Davidson a little earlier. You know, right now, she can't lose. She won 2 races over the weekend. You get a rider that rarely rides here, so you're going to get a price. And if this race goes off the turf and goes onto the dirt because of the rain, 3 or 4 in the rain, or 3 or 5 in the rain. So you got to like that. You got to use Mr. Tickle for sure. That's like a given. And Forgotten Coast is another one you might want to look at too, who basically has been running at Delta Downs against some really tough optional 10 claimers.
Yeah, I just to me this was one of the harder races to get a good feel for. Let's jump to the late daily double there at Sam Houston on Wednesday, March 11th. 25 non-2 claimers, mile on the turf course there. I'm going to look to the 5, or excuse me, the 5 will be on a lot of my tickets. Madison's Wild One, who just had a tough start last time out. I think you can put a line through it back to the grass where she's run well a couple times. But I do like the 6, Hannah Highway also. We were just talking about Arlington. I really like those Arlington grass races, including the one going long behind the June 15th race. There were 3 next out winners that day, including the winner who came back to win a stakes race. So I have 6, 5, and I don't want to really completely dismiss the 8, Decorated for Gold. So I'll probably key in a little bit more on the 5 and the 6 here. Where do you go?
I go with the 3, 11, 10 tee time.
Yeah.
This horse won going a mile 16th at Oaklawn Park. But if you go back to her first two turf races, those were solid races. The debut, she showed a little early speed, was sitting off the lead, and then just didn't have
much
anything.
Better, yeah.
And then the second race, she ran pretty well on the turf. And then they kind of Brendan had her doing some other things, trying to dirt, didn't work. Steve claims her off of the Keelan race, runs her at Turfway Park. Some horses don't like that racetrack, especially when it's cold. If you're not near the lead, you're pretty much in trouble sometimes, especially early in the meet. And then he takes her over to, Oaklawn, and she wins. And I'm also in agreement with Madison's Wild One too.
And then we will go to race number 10, close things out on the Wednesday card. The 5,000 beaten claimers, they're going to go a mile. I think in the Tuesday and Wednesday, Catalana have a couple opportunities to get a win. I thought the 5 was actually pretty well spotted in here after coming out of some much, much better races. I generally don't like to play horses like this who's 0 for their last 16 and don't win again a lot. But if you look at those races, they're just a lot tougher. And then after that, I guess I'm pretty logical in this one. The 2 Magic in Motion GP makes sense on the draw. Perfectly Precious is in really nice form. The 9 Cat's Honor hasn't raced since September, but should probably be coming late on the scene. So I guess I'm not really getting too creative in that last race. How do you close things out?
I'm not either. I really like Magic Emotion. She's got early speed, she's got early speed. She'll get onto the rail early on, and this distance fits her. She's 6 of 9 from the distance. Kind of hard to go against that type of horse that's consistently winning on this trip. And the other horse I would probably throw in is the 10, Perfectly Precious. She's won 2 straight. Yes, they've been at Delta Downs, but Tracy Morris knows how to train horses here, and this horse is 9 of 10 from this distance in the money. So you kind of have to use that horse as well. So those are the 2 horses that I keyed in on, and also Cat's Honor, who might have a better effort this time out.
Andy, I appreciate it. We'll have to get you back on in the next couple weeks and talk Sam Houston again, and then even when Sam Houston ends, we'll have to bring you back on just to handicap other big cards all throughout the year. Let the folks know out there, where can we follow you on social media? Where can we find you?
Well, lately, well, at least today, you can find me at A Villanueva 3RD on Twitter because I've been tweeting up a storm and apparently upsetting a few people to where I get phone calls. But, it really doesn't matter because I'm going to say my piece as far as when it comes to accountability and all that. And also, you can go to Ad Integrity, or you can also go to Integrity Racing and bloodstock.com if you're interested in any bloodstock opportunities as far as broodmares and or ownership groups that we're putting together.
Andy, I really appreciate it. It's always fun talking races with you, and we'll be chatting again very soon.
Thanks, Gino. Have a good week.
That's Andy Villanueva there. So a big thank you to Andy Villanueva for coming on. We'll have him on again to talk some racing soon. I'm going to just quickly roll through some of my plays for Tuesday. So in race number 1 at Sam Houston, I have him pegged 7-6-1. I'm going to use the 7 sitting on the Nile. I think she has speed. She can sit. A repeat of the February 1st race wins this. So I'll have 7-6-1 in that order. I'll give you the plays at the end. In race number 2, we're going to go 4-1-6-10 in here. I like the 4, Witzgato, who was hooked wide from the outside, was 4 deep early, was up to challenge right on even terms with the leader and the eventual winner. I thought it was a very solid effort before fading back and now moves back to the grass. 4-1-6-10 there in race number 2. In the third, I'm going to go with the 9 horse. We'll put on top in here. El Chocolat, who had an inside trip from the rail. It was not bad at all. Just couldn't seal the deal when angling off. Let's put the 9 on top of the 4. King Bling, who I respect. I just don't know if anyone can really go with him early. He was a step slow, and then he squeezed back and rushed up in between to battle. And then the 6 horse in here, Moro Dreams, will be the third. 9, 4, 6 we will include in race number 4. At Sam Houston, let's use the 7. Last I knew, the long shot. I just love his turf form in here. On February 1st, he was last. It was on the grass. It was last time he was on the grass. He had a slow start going 5 furlongs. He was 10 off. He was dead last. He was still last at the top of the lane. He angled out widest of all. It was a very nice third against First Level Allowance Company. He has wins at a mile and at 7 furlongs. Last I knew, we're going to put the 7 on top of the 10 Bell Ringer, who we'll use in all exotics, the 8 Little Big Man, and the 3 Sherrills Ready in race number 5. Let's go to the number 6 horse in here, Smilin' Cobra. We'll put on top. I have the 3 Swaneeland in the second spot. I think you have to use in all exotics. The 1, if you want to go a little deeper, Alu Ghost. The 2, Ice Strike, and the 4, Buddy Rocket. That's how I've approached race number 5. In the 6th race, I think it's a spread out race. I have the 4 and the 8 as kind of my top tier, with Joy to the World, who was going to go third off the long layoff, was in between but was close up and angled widest of all. It really wasn't a bad turf sprint last time out. I think Majestic Queen's the one to beat. So I'll have the 4 and the 8. Underneath them, I'll have the 6, 7, and the 9. The 6 Golden Perry, who has some speed. The 7 Mizana, who should sit nicely. And the 9 Jersey Cut shouldn't be too far out of it. In race number 7, wide open. As I mentioned, I just don't know who's going to sit the type of trip in here that'll win. Let's use the 6 Detroit 66, the 3 CH My Last Dollar, the 2 Preferred Prospect, the 7 Grady's Cat, the 9 Cross Time, the 11 with the Speed Wonders of the Love, the 13 Cafe Gold. This is just an absolute spread out race for me. No strong opinion. In race number 8, I'm going to use the number 8, Prancing Missy Tissy, on top. This will actually be one of the singles in the late pick 5 for me. We'll use on a different ticket the 9, Laura and Lucas, the 3, Head Over Boots, and the 7, Whimsical Tail. In race number 9, I like the 1, Macho Flyer. We're going to make a little win wager on this one. Got stuck on the inside, was shuffled, was behind horses, was traveling well, and just had nowhere to go. And the turf form is good. You see 3 for 43 overall, but let's just kind of key in on that grass form. Macho Flyer, the 1, the 7, Disinclined, the 8, we'll be using Moro Cool. Then I have the 2, Paula's Buddy, and the 4 if you go a little bit deeper in here. But 1, 7, 8, kind of the top tier in race number 9 to close things out in race number 10 with the 1, Divine Favor, the long shot from the inside speed, dropping second off the bench, the 1 to catch. We'll use the 9 along with that one. 15, Love Black. The 3, King Ptolemy, is in the third spot. And then the 8, if you're going to go a little bit deeper, hardly seen slim. But I'm fine with 1-9 or even 1-8-9 and taking a shot against Tolmie if you want to do so there in that final race. So for Tuesday's card, let's play an early pick 5 now with the 1, 6, and 7, with the 1, 4, 6, and 10, with the 4 and the 9, with the 3, 7, 8, 10, with the 3, 6. And we'll play a separate ticket where it's 1, 6, 7, with 1, 4, with 4, 6, 9, with 7, 10, with 1, 2, 3, 4, 6. In the 6th race, pick 5s, I'll just give you pick 5s because if you want to play pick 4s, pick 3s, you can just, cut out the one leg, cut out the two legs, and play them, or if you have to shorten up, you can tell how I've ranked the horses in order. 6th race, pick 5, 4, 8, with 2, 3, 6, 7, with 3, 7, 8, 9, with 1, 7, 8, with 1, 9, and then another pick 5, 4, 6, 7, 8, 9, with 2, 3, 6, 7, 9, 11, 13, with the 8, with the 1, 2, 4, 7, 8, with the 1, 3, 8, 9. Horses to use throughout the day. In the first race, the number 7, City on the Nile. Second race, the number 4, Wits Gatto. Fourth race, the number 7, Last I Knew. Eighth race, the number 8, Prancing Miss Tissy. The ninth race, the number 1, Macho Flyer. And the 10th, the number 1, Divine Favor. Let's move on over to Wednesday. Get your past performances out. March the 11th. We'll begin 6 furlongs on the main. This is a rough race. I just don't have it's hard to really love or have a strong opinion. But the 5 Mula Echo, I guess if you watch the race, he had a slow start from the inside. He got stuck in a tight spot. He tried to push through, but he had nowhere to go. He was on a good racetrack, on an off racetrack. And now he's going to get, more to the middle of the pack. I think the 5's the one to beat in here. Let's go 5-1-6-3. That's the order of how I think they're going to finish in race number 1. The second race, the 1 is Brightest. She's coming out of a tough race. The third place finisher just came back to win a maiden special weight that she exits. And, down on the rail, she's going to be forced a little bit to go. The 5 is Silver Coin, who was squeezed back at the start, who was last of 9, was, able to kind of get into the race. Middle move within a couple lengths, had to go widest of all with 6 wide, and then flattened out a little bit late. I'm just going to use those 2. I'll use the 5 and the 1 in some of the early exotics, and Silver Coin might be worthy of a win wager if you can get like 8-1 or so, because the way Brightest gets beat is it's if there's other speed in this race, like the 4 Triple Bold Baby, who ends up pushing Brightest, and maybe one of the 2 outside horses end up pushing Brightest, and then it sets up for Silver Coin to come from off the pace a little bit. In race number 3, the 2 Future Abundance I have on top, he had a good start. He sat 5th. He was 3 off. He was in between. He kind of loomed up into contention, but he was a little flat late. It was not a bad effort at all, so I'll use him on top. The 6 horse we'll have in the second spot. That's Troy Ounce, who's just coming out of a tough first-level allowance. I think a race that he probably needed. He should be much better in this spot. The 4, Zip Zap Time. I wonder, can he sit? I'm okay with playing against the 5, View Magic, but can the 4 sit a little bit in here? I hope so, because he might have to. Let's go 2, 6, 4. In race number 4, I like the 6, Rat Tattooey. He's a little quicker. She's a little quicker than it seems on paper. She had a good start. She was right up with the leader. She was inside. She was chasing the speed. She was just a half length off. And then she was on the inside. She got shuffled. She came on again. Rat Tattooey we'll put on top. We'll use the 3, Frankie Dioro in the second spot on the drop. The 1, Giving Kisses, the speed of the speed, and the 2, Shanghai Woman underneath. So 6-1 or 6-3-1-2 in race number 4. Fifth race, wide open. Let's use the bomb. Blazing Guitar on top. Horse who was hustled for the lead, got to the front, was inside on the lead in going into the turn, and then was battling on the front end, but he was down on the rail and he ends up getting shuffled and on the inside, and he comes out again. It was a weird race. I was really impressed by it. And he's got some nice turf form to call back on. He moves back to the grass. Let's put the 7, Blazing Guitar, on top. The 5 in the second spot, Rocket Man. The 10 we'll use in most of the exotics, Patriot. And then behind them, the 2, Mighty Myrtle, the 1, Cowboy Breeze, and the 4, Reverend AJ is deeper to use depending on how deep you go in your exotics. Sixth race, I do think the 1 gives you a good 2-for-1 with the entry. Empire of Gold, the speed part of the entry. The 1A, Irish Silver, will come running late. The 3, Code Runner, probably the class of the field, will try to come and get them all late. And then the 6, Pastor Van, I think I'm going to use in most exotics. I just don't really have a whole lot against Pastor Van for some top-notch connections. So 1A 6-3 is how I see this race. In the 7th race, the 5 is where I'll go. I've been waiting for Rosie Bear to get back on the grass. She fits very nicely in here. Look at the last couple of times she's been on the grass. There was a first-level allowance at Churchill that was against much, much tougher. And then the Arlington races, they were good. She's just finally back to sprinting on the green. I'm a Barn Cat, the speed from the inside. She'll be tough to run down. And then Liner Rink, the 3, getting back to the grass. So 5-1-3 in race number 7. And we go to race number 8. I'm going to put the 9 on top in here, but this is one race that I just don't have a very strong opinion at all, Deep Explorer. So I'll go 9. The 2, Excavation, is a price. The 1, Mr. Tickle, loves to win races. The 8, Dark Arden, and the 4, Ebrio, will be horses to kind of keep an eye on what their prices are and to include in some of the exotics. Race number 9, we'll go with the 6 horse, Hannah Highway. I'm looking back at the career best effort, and it's on June the 15th. It's at Arlington Park. It's going long on the grass. She's in a race where there were 3 next out winners. Indigo Gin was a next out stakes winner. The 5th place finisher came back to win a first level allowance, and the 7th place finisher won a 20-on-2 next out. Hannah Highway hasn't been on the grass a whole heck of a lot, but when she has been, she's been good. I'm going to give Hannah Highway top billing in here. Madison's Wild 1 stumbled, missed the start, and then just never had a shot. Last time we saw her on February the 25th. This was a good spot for her. She's going to be really tough in here with what she's done on the grass. The 8, Decorated for Gold, is a logical contender. The 3, 11 tee times. So nothing too outside the box in here, but of all of them, I do prefer the 5 and the 6, and in particular, the 6. And then we close things out in race number 10. I'm going to go with the 5 on top in here. Back to dirt. Dropping in class. This is just a much, much better spot for a horse who's been a little bit overmatched. The 2, Magic in Motion, another one who's getting, getting class relief and should run a lot better in here. The 10, Perfectly Precious, looking for a 3rd in a row, and the 9, Cat's Honor, late on the scene. So nothing too crazy, nothing too outside the box. The price plays that I have are a little earlier on in the card at Sam Houston. So let's go through the way that we will be playing this Sam Houston Wednesday card for March 11th. First race, pick 5. We're going to go 1, 3, 5, 6 with 1, 5, with 2, 4, 6, with 3, 6, with 2, 5, 7, 10. Play another pick 5 where you single the 5 in the first with 1, 5, with 2, 4, 6, with 1, 2, 3, 6, with 1, 2, 4, 5, 7, 10. Sixth race, pick 5. Single the 1 to start with the 1, 3, 5, with a 1, 2, 4, 8, 9, with a 3, 5, 6, 8, with a 2, 5, 9, 10. And another attempt at a pick 5 with a 1, 3, 6 in the race number 6, 1, 5 in the 7th, 1, 2, 9 with 5, 6, 8 with 2, 5, 10. Horses to keep an eye on throughout the card. First race, the number 5, Mula Echo, will be singling in some of the early pick 5s. Race number 2, the 5, Silver Coin. Race number 3, the 2, Future Abundance. Race number 4, the 6, Rat Tattooey. Race number 5, the 7, Blazing Guitar. And race number 7, the 5, Rosie Bear. In the 9th, the 6, Hannah Highway. Thanks for tuning in to this episode of That's What G Said. Appreciate it. We'll be back later in the week where we cover some of the weekend racing. We're going to have Caleb Keller on to talk about some college basketball. We're going to have Keeneland Dan on to talk some college basketball. Craig Milkowski will be on to discuss the Rebel and some of the Oaklawn Park stakes races on a big weekend coming up at Oaklawn, where we're going to see Nadal and Basin and Silver Prospector and No Parole. So really looking forward to this weekend coming up. Thanks to Jon Stettin. Thanks to Andrew Champagne. Thanks to Andy Villanueva for their interviews. Make sure to subscribe, rate, review, download anywhere that you can. Give us the little 5-star ratings and let your friends know about That's What G Said. Here's one of my friends, Joey Cleveland. Take it away.